Rohe Ngati Puna Tū, Patrick Tangaire, ko ia hoki te tiama. Rohe Ngati Puna Toru, he kia parata, Rohe Ngati Puna Toru, ko ia hoki te tiamana tuarua, Watty Goldsmith, Rohe Ngati Puna Wha, Karen McClutchy, Rohe Ngati Puna Wha, Bobby Morris, Rao ko Kanewa Stokes, Rohe Ngati Puna Rima, Juanita Timu, Marae Hania, Rohe Ngati Puna Ono, ko ngā mea whakamutunga ko Alana Irwin, Rāua ko Annette Wehi, ngā māngai mō rohenga. E te iwi, a kuni ka tīmata tātātou hui, kai konei hoki i te nui. He tātari atu ana ki a tīmata tātātou nei hui, ki a whakarongo ki ngā kōrero mō tō tātou nei iwi i roto. Kai konei tātou mō tēnei rā, ko te tūmana ko ia ki te noho haumaru rā koutou i raro tunu i te manaakitanga o te tātou nei kaihanga. Nama e he whakarite ana ki a whakahaere tā tātou nei irirangi Ngati Porou. Kei te live stream hoki tēnei hui runga tunu i te pokamata, mēnā pērangi koe ki te mātaki-taki i te hui, haere stream. Pēra kei te pai ki a koutou, te whakarongo mai nā ki ngā reo o Ngati Porou, me mau tunu mai. Kei konei tātou, kei te ki te tepu, ki te koro e atu i ngā kōrero mo te wā. Nō reire te iwi he nui tō ngā mahi o tēnei rangi, ko te whārangi o te pukapuku nei hika, ko eke nei ko te kotahi rau te kaumārima ngā whārangi. Nō reira, he mahi nui, ko mahia e tō tātou nei. I te tau kōhori ake rā, nō reira kei te hora mai nei ngā pakeke ki te noho haere rātau, i runga i o rātau nei tūru. Hika, i tātahi nei ko heke nei rātau i te, koe nei ngā me tuatahi ko hora mai nei, ko kōrero te ake rā, au tātou nei, tāngata i runga tonu te poari whakahaere o te reo irirangi o Ngati Porou. Ki haere te kei konei te maru o te tangata i tēnei wā, ki te whakarongo ki ngā hua, kua puta i ngā ringa raupā, o te poari whakahaere te Runanganui o Ngati Porou, me ona pekinga katoa. Ka tīmata ake rā, ki runga tonu te ngā Runanganui o Ngati Porou tonu. Whā te kauma ono ngā kaimahi, Toitu Ngati Porou, Ngati Porou Oranga, toru rau, ngā kaimahi.
Ngata kei roto i te kihini e takatu ana, kia hui mai tātou ki roto nei, ka tīmata tātou hui. Tētahi pānui, ai ki au te ata nei, me te ki kare aia, me tana rōpū trustees e whakae, te kanga i roto i tēnei whare, and kia tau te ahu o te tangata. So she says, no swearing and no bad behaviour on behalf of the trustees. Kia ora. Of course, if you've got Tourette's.
Koe nora e tiwi, koe kanga, te mahi weti ki a tātou anō. He runga tonu, ko te hui nei, ko tōna tikanga, he hui rangi Māre, he hui, kia noho whānau tahi. Tātou nei hononga, he ki ngā iho mai i a porou ariki. Tō tātou nei rangatira, tō tātou nei tīpuna. Nō reira, kei te kimi tūri kuni, kātua, whakawhiti atu ki te tepu, ki a whakarongo ki ngā kōrero te wā. Hoi anō ka hoki ake anō ki ngā kōrero, ko te wāhanga whakamutunga te Runanganui a Ngati Porou, ko Ngati Growth, toru te kau mā toru ngā kaimahi o te rapeke Runanganui o Ngati Porou. Hoi anō, hua nui ake ngā kaimahi i tēnei tau. He whakamaharatanga ake ki a koutou, mena kāre tonu i te rarangi ingo atu iwi, me haere koutou ki te whārangi ipurangi te Runanganui hei reira ka tae koe ki te whakakiki haere i ngā tono ke uru atu i tō ingo i runga tonu i te rarangi ingo atu tātou nei iwi. Mena, ka rehita koe, ka hei koe ki te whiwhi piuta mō ngā karihipi o te Runanganui. Ka tae koe ki te pāniu e ngā pāniu ka tūkana atu e te runanganui e ki a tātou. Hoi anō. A kuni whakawhiti atu ki te tepu me te Karakia hei whakatū whera i tā tātou nei hui. Kei te ururu mai ngā ka whaka. Kuni ka whakarongo ki a rātou e kōrero ana mo a rātou nei wahanga. Tuatahi ake te ngā tau kei mua i a tātou. Me te mea no hoki, koko nei whakapoahotanga motu hake. Runanganui a Ngati Porou 2020 mawhai. Tātou nei hui, kei te titiro whakawaho tātou nei tiamana ki te karanga atu mai ki ro whare. Kia hei tātou ki te noho tahi, ki te whakarongo tahi, ki ngā kōrero o te wā. Ki te iwi kāre kore, he nui ngā kōrero ka puta mai te rangi nei, mo tō tātou nei he iwi, no reine me hono tunu. Tātou nei hui, anō nei mena ki te pirangi kui te mātakitaki i ngā pikitia, me haere koutou ki te live stream e runga tunu. Karongo i ngā kōrero o te wā. Tēnā pe ki te rongo koutou e te ketu o ngā manu o ngā iwi o Ngati Porou e ketu te whare. Kāre anō ētahi kua whai tūru. Whaiti mai nei i roto tonu i tō tātou nei whare i tēnei wā. Roro te tuanui i tēnei whare a tāhua tūnei tarangi nei. Kei konei tā. Roro tonu i te manakitanga o te whānau arua taupare. Kia papa bau haere o māne whakahaere tō tātou Karakia.
Koina kia ora tātou. Ko tātou Karakia tātou nei, paki inoi o te hare. A kuku mai tātou.
E te karaiti tohu ngea mātou. E tō mātou matu e te rangi. Kia tapu tō ingoa. Kia tāi mai tō rangatiratanga. Kia mētia tāu e pai ai ki runga ki te whenua. Kia rite anō ki tō te rangi. O mai kia mātou ai nei he taro mā mātou mo tēnei rā. Murua o mātou hara. Me mātou ki e muru nei o te hunga e harana kia mātou. Te whakawaia. Engari whakorangi a mātou te kino. Tiratanga, te kaha me te kroria, ake, 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 amen.
E te are ki te... Te kei tui ake ko te papa. Tuia ki tarangi ki runga nei, tānu ki te papa e takoto nei. E tau... Ke te amaramatanga, ke whai kroria, kore te amata mahi katoa. Nai nei a ake tuna atu.
Someone sends apologies for lateness. His microphone is on first at Tokomaru.
Okay. Selwyn for lateness.
Ka te hino kua mutu te Karakia. A kone ka tutu mai e te hai o te potepu ki te whakatau i te iwi.
Nei ngā whakamoemiti ki tō tātou matua nui te rangi. He tika tonu kia whakahonore tia, kia whakakororia tia tōne ingoa i ngā wākatoa. Reira, tēnā tātou ko whaiti mai nei tēnei ata i runga i te karanga te Runanganui o Ngati Porou kia huitahi ai tātou. Ko nei te wā tuatahi ko noho au i tēnei pitahi ai tātou. Ko nei te wā tuatahi ko noho au i tēnei tūru hei whakahaere te tatau hui. Ko roa tā heroini e whakahaere ana i nei hui, engari kei te moho katoa tātou i runga i ngā tohu a te trustee i makere aia. Tēnā hoki rā tātou i o tātou tini aitua. Ko te Māori rongo nui tērā o tātou Karama, te karau anō hoki a Sir Bob Gillies, te whakamutunga o ngā hoi o te rua. Tērā wiki, ko te wahine hoi waka anō hoki tērā, Kiwi Campbell. O tira te pūkahu no te hunga mate, e kore rawa rātou e ware tia. Me Papa Richard Rangihuhuna, ara anō Wai nora ka hoki ngā mihi kia tātou e tau nei, tēnā koutou nau mai haere mai ki te tautoko, te kaupapa o te rānei. Apologies. I received, I believe I have to read these out. Okay, he puka tō tēnei. Lunch should be ready by the time I finish reading these out. Wirepa, Hepetema Te Puni, Huti Puketapu Watson, Angeline Greensill, Houston, Molly Pardo, Lillian Tangaire Baldwin, Reverend Connie Ferris, Harata Gibson, Joseph Morris, Lionel McCarthy Martinga, Julie Stitchley, McDonald Solomon, Jackie Royal, Jane Poe, Wattie Goldsmith, Tui Woman Hovilia Wano, George Karodia, Amanda Waitai, Calva Ruru, Kobe Te Pai, Toby White, Chantal Campbell, Romney Harrison, Kiriana Walker, Hugh Stewart, Natana Toby White, Chantal Campbell, Romney Harrison, Kiriana Walker, Hugh Stewart, Natana Hiratare, Alexander Karodia, Laurie Harrison, Georgina Haig, Cheryl Johnson, Denise Hovell, Markere Johnson, Christine Rangi, Eliza Waruhei, Kerry Ann Collier, Des Reedy, Sarah Kane, Kiriana Fox, Caroline Thompson, Danielle Portai, Mehana Te Huia, Sheena Tiria Smaula, Nenit Kernahan, sorry if I've mispronounced that. I myself, I'm used to it, Tangariri, all of that. Paris Kaitai, Tuari Kaiai, Tracy Takarua, Hope Sadlier, Susan Wallace, Winsome Kennedy, Te Aroha Coleman, Alice Hunt, Nata Natare, Travis Tawira, Maria Tamepo, Horne McClutchy, George Hokamo, CJ Fox Campbell, Kirby Wimutu, Vicky Henry, Jesse Lerm, Karaitiana Tibble Poe, Henry Banks, Wipere Mita, Hiki Tai Green, Leroy Kururangi, Mason Takarua, Kirby Wimutu, Missy Wimutu, Andrew Collins, Joan Elangata, Gwenda Findlay, Laurie Sadlier, Rena Ellis, Dean Warner, Joanne Wistrup, Arihia Poi, Mason Wetini, Irene Loda, Jason Hope, Kura Tihore, Kevin Pewhairangi, Ricky Whairangi Lawton, Christian Lawton, and finally for lateness, Henny Tibble, who's Pia Pohatu. Hi, who's recording this? Albi.
Who's recording?
Iruera Wharehinga. Heni Waikari. Penny Waikari. Okay.
Sorry, just what he's online because he's got COVID. But he's not an apology.
Oh, okay. Watty is not an apology. He's online.
He's got COVID.
Okay. Somebody move the apologies, please.
I do.
Moved by here. By Phil.
Philip Hope.
Those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, okay, carried. Looking for a mover to
Has to be someone who's here.
someone that was here. You were here. What's your name? Jessamine Wano moves it. Speedy seconded. Those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, carried. Okay. So, ko taku reporter I nāne. Now, ko te reporter kei roto I te pokopoka nei. Ngā wari noa ki te pānui, hara te me roi a koe te pānui atu tuhi. Ngā wari noiho. Koe nora karau mo te pānui ngā slides. Koe hoha no koutou ki te whakarongo kia. So bullet points ni. Tuatahi me mihi, he tika tunu kia mihi atu ki ngā mema o te poari o mua. Ngā mea kāre I eke anō, ko Dean Moana, ko Marae ka Womenhoven, rāua ko Tini, rātou ko Tini Derek Fox. Ngā mea kāre I tū anō rātou ingo kia tū ki te poari, ko Maui Tangohau, Kelly Blackman, te Raukūpenga, me Trudy Lewis. Ko te hunga I makere mai I raro I ngā steed, ko Ani Pāhuru, ko Ray Kohere, Tui Womenhoven, Lil Baldwin, Tangaire Baldwin. Oh, you're going to? Yes. Tātou tia mana o mua kia tāhere weni. No moho te... Oh, yes. E me ngā mihi ki ngā kaimahi katoa Te Runanganui. Next page, please. Trumper point. Okay. Our two reps mo te rau kumara, ko... No. E toru Womenhoven, me Karen McClutchy Hookie. Koe te tahi. Kei te muho koutou, ko te nuinga o te poari. Te poari o te rātau, kei runga I tonu I te poari I tēnei tau māua ko nā Raihānia. He apologies are not mō tēnā, na te mea ka tai tūreiti mai eia. Rāua ko whiti o te tuahine o nā. Ka tai mai rāua ākuni. So 85% of the board is new. 12 new, 2 old. Well, not old, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Okay. O tēnei tau I ue pohatu. Ko wetoke. And te mana motuhake. Ahira. Te maha noa o ngā iwi o te motu I tai atu ki ue pohatu. Me taku mihi anō hoki ki ngā iwi katoa o te tai rāwhiti. Mai I whānau apa nui tai atu ki ngai tā manuhiri te aitanga mahaki Ngati Porou I runga I tēnā kaupapa. Nā reira, e kore rawa e mutu ngā mihi kia tā. I'm nearly at the end. Ara, tiro kei te harapa haere tātai. Now, hei te mea huki, he maha tunu ngā tāngata o Ngati Porou ka huki mai ki te kāinga mo te Power Wars. So we'll have a Ngati Porou iwi hui on the 4th. Kia whakatakoto hea, ngā mea hia tiana tātou ki te kite. And also, hei kei te kohete te au e tako.
Kāre anō kia taurawa.
Oh, but it is on the 4th?
The hui ai.
Okay. And you know what? Kia au nei. Yeah. Kia ora koutou. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Hi, kia ora rā. Can you hear me? Hi, kia ora. Just one thing to add to the Chairman's report, just a recognition of the ongoing growth of the pūtea in our organisation, the Tokomaru Group assets, 298 million heading towards, well, just over the 300 million, 310. I'm moving on to my presentation. Kia ora rā. Mine will be short. I've actually managed to delegate upwards to the chairs to do the presentations around the individual parts of the organisation. So mine is, if I can find the right piece of paper, mine is going to be simple like the chairman's. Its impact and how it's impacted on all of our whānau is still being felt throughout the region. Acknowledge all of the work that has taken place over the last little while. The response to recovery stage is nearly, well, I think we're there. So just acknowledging the road repairs, Marae home restoration, debris cleaning, Marae work, cleanups, about 80,000 tonnes of woody debris. I was trying to figure out how big that was, but it just scales out. I think those who may have stood on the beaches will understand the scale of the problem that existed. Resilience, what does that look like? We're still working on helping our communities to put in place the right, let's say, resources to help them in the event of a new one. So those things are still happening on the ground. We also took an roadshow early on after the cyclone. It's fair to say people are okay, but still anxious about rain events. So a lot of our health, hinengaro. I don't want to use the other version of it because it just turns it into something too negative, but hinengaro work through the issues and we'll start to see some improvements in that space. Our Tiaki Tangata, Tiaki Kāinga group, the volunteer group is still doing a lot of work around knowledge, tools, so they've got equipment and things like that happening. See, quick, eh? What have we done? I did want to talk about headwinds. So the not just us, but in Parliament, but also about the change in policy and things like that. There's been a couple of big ones for us as Māori, and there's a couple still coming through the pipeline. And it was put in 2019 that Māori tamariki, when they were uplifted or put into care, they had to go back to... So over that short period, there's evidence that shows that about 1,500 enacted a repeal of that part of the legislation. There are things going on in the background to try and ensure that the purpose of the legislation is not lost. So the purpose is to actually make sure that our whānau have access to their whakapapa. While the legislation may be repealed, try and change the way the system works. I for one am not necessarily convinced that with action we will make any great headway, because in the past, without legislation, the Crown and its servants have not followed what. The smoking cessation one, I've just raised it as a, we continue to not promote smoking, but we, yeah. Well, we've gone and put in submissions, and we're still working on those things. It's the biggest killer of our people in the region. So we're still, as an organisation, still working on it. The other two, Bill, those of you who went on the hikoi, kia ora. All right. The impact on directly is likely to be a reduction in our revenue for the contracts and services that we provide. That's, I think we've been here before, but it is tough. What are we going to do? Well, we've just got to pull, use a bit more the top 3 inches of your. That's where we're going in terms of the innovation, transformation. Those things will come over the next few months while we figure out what the lay of the land looks like after the government's finished working with us. And I've got to say, this is an example of what happened during the cyclone, where our people from outside of the region also reached in to help. And I think now we've got to continue that approach to control whānau. This is NPO. Someone will do a proper or full presentation, as Patrick has done for the main board. The NPO board members that were there, Ngati Porou Oranga used to be Ngati Porou Hau. I won't go through the names because I'm liable to not recall them all, but thank you tirelessly actually to shift our dial around health and social services for our communities. Despite our challenges, our revenue's grown from 29 to 38 million in the period. Out let's just say we didn't spend all the money, we've got about 900k left from that. You'll provide services. So most of this money just goes out in terms of salaries and out essentially. And it is our first full year of operations under there. And I've talked about the political, oh, that's not there on that one. Toitu. I'll let them speak for themselves. Again, an acknowledgement. I've been very lucky to have really good board people who have supported the kaupapa. And we've got them again, but I just want to acknowledge those that have moved. The presentation will talk partnerships and grants going forward, so you'll be able to see what we've been doing in that space. Our year-end position, I haven't got it here, but I know that we didn't spend all the money that we were budgeted to spend in that period, mainly because it's just too many other things going on. For me, I'm not going to get to speak again, so well, I hope not. I just want to acknowledge our staff. they're at the backbone of our organisation, all the good and sometimes the bad things that happen as a result of who I consider to be the most important part of our business is our people. They've gone above and beyond whenever I've asked, and COVID, cyclones, weather events, anything else, the team have been great around that. We've got a kahui kaumātua cohort set up inside the organisation to have wealth of knowledge and reo and whakapapa, waiata and mōteatea. If you're in town and you want to, you're more than welcome. I just and them for doing the hard work in that space. We're still being developed inside the organisation. It's not an easy journey when for 20 odd years, you've done what you wanted to do and told people who actually we now need to listen to the voice of our whānau and use that to, design our services. Kapai? And like Patrick, I just want to acknowledge the past board as well. They were courageous in allowing me the latitude to go and do these sorts of things. Structure that our organisation has created. Not to say it's the final end of it, but it's on a journey. All right? Kia ora. Thank you. No question. Are you good with the green?
I will work it out. Questions? Kapai. Hang on.
Koe Ngati Porou.
Ngā mihi kia koe, ngari kare koe I konei. I te mea ko tā mai koe I tēnei wā, tēnā koe ko harapai, graced us with your presence. I kōrero mātai koe, I kōrero mo tō hui tino, whakahira I ue pohatu, te mutunga mai o te ātāhua o tēnā hui. Ka mutu, I rongo kōrero au, te wā I haere tātou ki pōneke mo te hikoi, karau I hikoi I tō tā. I wish I did. Because I rongo au, aha ko te nui o ngā tāngata I reira, tā ratau ki te tanga I a koe, ka wehe haere, kia wātea te huarahi kia koe. Me te koe, me I whakari te moana ki ngā Israelites. Engari acknowledging you I tēnei wā korua tai ko tō hua wahine ko tā mai ne I tēnei rā. I know you were late because your mokopuna was performing first. At the Tata will carry on with our presentation. Thank you, Egg.
Firstly, just like to thank everyone for coming, those that are present in person and those that are online. One of the fabulous things about coming to our hui ātau is we actually get to see, touch and feel each other. So I think it's absolutely fabulous that we're all here. Life's all about the growth. It is what it is. Anyway, and I'm a bit of a fraudster at the moment because I see over here that I'm the chairperson. Well, that's actually not quite correct. Ngati Porou Oranga Board, which as George stated was the first time that we'd operated with the combining of the Ngati Porou Runanga social services, housing and health. Toitu board and moved over and held the line and got the organisation set up. So this is our first year of operating as Ngati Porou Oranga. Yes. So I drew the short straw to be the presenter. And I'll declare that I do have a vested interest in hauora, as I was an tribute to past board members of Ngati Porou Hauora and past staff members of Ngati Porou Hauora who actually held the line. And one of the wonderful things about actually having merged our services with the Runanga social services to actually, you know, bring things like pay parity to our clinical staff that in my time as a manager we could never ever quite afford. And so we've enjoyed the positive things like that by being a greater collective of people. Presently we have, and I'm not going to read all the stuff on these things. Like Patrick said, you know, there is a lot of patient base of 9,038 patients. Probably the smallest primary health organisation in New Zealand, and we probably are the only Māori organisation, iwi, that actually owns and runs our hospital. And I think that's something that we should always be proud of. I am particularly proud of the fact that Ngati Porou Oranga can boast that one of our nurses, it was the youngest person practitioner in my day, try and get our nurses to go and be a nurse practitioner. Heck, that was like moving Moses and moving the water. Who achieve that, because, you know, access is a big issue for us at home, and the reality is a nurse practitioner can prescribe medications, they can even sign off death certificates. So that's where we're going to ensure that our whānau can get better access to services. You know, we got services, the prime services, and we all like to show off that we did something new, and I'm just going to take my hat off for the old board, because we did have prime services in earlier years, even before I got there. We've always had challenges. Money comes and goes with the government, and, you know, we will ride out a lot of challenges with the change of legislation that's on us. Infrastructure, improve. That is actually key to keeping us alive, is actually getting us out quickly. So it's fabulous that our staff have been able to focus on things like that, creating, you know, we might think an 0800 number is not important, but man, you're going to find out. When you're feeling down, you want someone on the line straight away. You don't want to wait. Our local young people, and I see, you know, young research project with Ngati Porou Oranga, and so that's absolutely fabulous. Staff did a bit of a survey around the top hauora priorities, and you'll see them: mental health, diabetes, drug and alcohol, IMS, immunisations. Is that screen going to go up? Because this is probably the most important slide of my presentation. And I can't move on till it's up there. I don't know how to use this thing. Oh, mate, that might be someone telling me, sit down, girlsy. Oh, well, while they're looking for it, you always have a plan B. So I can go on to housing. You know, we had provided transitional housing. You can read all of that in the book. We collaborated with TBK to urgent repairs on homes that were affected by cyclone. Nearly 1,000 new whānau referrals, and we developed and implemented our waiora. We supported Hapu social services to provide Hapu community and rangatahi programs to over 500 whānau and Hapu members. And I'm just going to pay tribute to Amo in this, because this goes way back to the days when she was sitting in the chair of the CE. Said, here you people, whānau hapu out there, you want to set up some little committees and drive what's important to you. You see that it's still going, Hapu Social Services is still going today. So kia ora to everyone for doing that. And then we've got kaupapa Māori navigation. It's really difficult, when you have a bit of an accident. I'm running around with a sore knee at the moment, and it's nice to know that our people who are affected actually can have someone advocate and help them through these processes. So better position to meet strict legislative requirements and standards to provide our own Ngati Porou iwi care to our mokopono and whānau. And for those people that know me, they know I'm an absolute legislative geek. I actually believe that it's the law, whether we like it or not, that rules our lives. And if we want to make change, we need to learn how to be part of that decision-making process. Right, so can we go back to... Okay, so in the book there, and then there's some whānau oranga services, and we've got a range of 22 different funding contracts to provide services. And like George said, you know, ourselves as the iwi provider to define what it is that people want so we can deliver directly to those needs rather than to the way the government structures the funding contracts. Versus really addressing the core needs of our whānau. We can move, I can move. Okay. I don't know how to go backwards. We help Pakirikiri in terms of receiving firewood, and that's a really important thing for our whānau. Wood, they're always saving it for the rainy day. They don't realise it's pouring right now. So we held wānanga, whānau wānanga, and whānau received essential home repairs. Oh. Well, don't ask me to sing because I certainly can't do that. But yeah, well, I've just got one more slide, and it is really, yeah, it's I mean to talk about it. But I think the challenge for all because that's the only way we're going to get better. When I finally decide I want to do this, I need to make sure when I want to go to the clinic, I can get in the clinic. Okay? We're systems within there, our data collection. We want to do all of that so you about your care. And please be aggressive consumers. It is your right and it's your obligation to you and your whānau to make sure you get the best health care that you can get. An aggressive consumer is not going, hey, excuse me, what does that mean? You know, if you're giving me this medication, what side effects you need to do? You need to be really clear about everything you're doing. You know, we want your board to after you die. Because, you know, when you talk, there's a huge part of that. So, you know, how you die is as important as how you live. Quality of death is a very important thing to your sense of well-being. So, you know, you have to have healthy individuals, to have healthy communities, healthy staff, because, you know, that maybe board member said yesterday, hey, can you guys go and find out this, can you go and find out that? I do pay tribute to Sonia. So they tell me at the moment, you know, we've got registered nurses, 14.6. In PK, in Gisborne, sorry, we have 6.2 registered nurses. employment equivalents. And GPs at the moment, and up the coast we've got 3.7. So now's the time to get in there and get those appointments. So kia ora, thank you very much, enjoy lunch.
Auditor report Agnes Water. Te tiama.
29.38 mil. How did we get that extra? To access further contracts. Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes. Kapai? Any curly questions?
Priorities we're missing in Tairāwhiti is meth. It's one of the most plaguing things in our national health targets. So it's about like, what's the data around the need of our people here in Tairāwhiti right throughout. So just want to put that in, it should be one of our priorities. I just want to share from a time on the Auditor board back in 2004 days when Papu like that was still alive. They had an amazing program. I don't know what the government did with it or the DHB, but it was called HINT program. And it was about access, and what those nurses were doing were going out into the work. So I'm just saying these. I know it's about the tono for available, and but you know it's having our ones that work dark to dark as well and can't get there. Kia ora.
And, you know, if you note in our whānau survey results, that was a priority area that was identified by the whānau around drug and alcohol support. Something that the staff are working on. Ngati Porou, we fund. We do fund the Marae-based rehab programs. We will be missing Tuta Ngāramu in terms of the drive and the passion that he had personally and going throughout our communities, right throughout in that space.
Can all questions come through the who's where doing what?
Oh, kia ora. Kia ora, Fuchsia Harrison here. An ex Ngati Porou hauora back then when I worked there. Yes, I really do like your priorities. They are really of dental is we really need a dental service. A consistent, not just people that come in and give us free service. We need a consistent dental service. So we really, really need a good, consistent dental service. Kia ora.
Hang on, can I please respond to that? It's probably really timely that we're in this whare at this point in time, because this community actually raised that very issue around having better access to dental services. So the board has recently recreated the journey and the relationship with you. Earlier years, Ngati Porou Hauora did have a very strong relationship with Ngati Porou Hauora Dental School, and that is a piece of work that's in progress at the moment. Gee, of us are getting curly here, girls and boys, come on.
The question around
Tēnā koe, Chair. I just want to in terms of, so if this is the year in review, what research are we looking at to? That is because I heard George mention about the henengaro, which I'm guessing comes out of that first line there, Manukeri.
These sort of things here, they have been national targets over the years, and they're sort of common causes, and the reality is to actually, like I say, Agnes Walker as a consumer needs to work her foot into the clinics and get these things. Oh, look, this very thing, I was here, 2 weeks ago. The Ngati Porou Oranga report on page 56, they've got a huge, mate, they talk genomics and, it's actually, I really realised that it's your whakapapa. So if something's wrong with you, like if your people die young, don't let the doctor autopsy, girls and boys. Go and get your whānau autopsied, because there may be something wrong with you genetically that can then help your other people. A great list of all of those things here that we've been researching, and it has been a purposeful drive to ensure that our research is specific and is going to help ourselves out as the people who live here. Kapai? Gee!
I'm just reading the research report that was done in the Matakawa area, and I just want to, we had at Henderupe, Mātahi o te tau Marae, from the Hicks Bay Wharekahika community. Our key priorities are not really reflected in this report. One of the main priorities that Matakawa people what we heard was the lack of service right through to Pōtikirua. Our Pakirikiri had those concerns. That is our main, the doctor, that our people deserve to have a full-time doctor. If you look at the isolation of the northern region, we have so many complications. We have to travel an hour to Te Puia Hospital for service because we haven't got a doctor within our area. So I just want to make our health board just aware. Kia ora.
Thank you, Michelle, and I hear you, and that's a constant challenge for us continually. Thank you.
Kia ora, Agnes, ngā mihi. I just want to ask, with Healthcare New Zealand making the cut of up to 1,500 staff, affecting public health for the coast, no doubt, I just want to know what bearing will that have for us in terms of our health here in the future, the near future.
I've just got some sound advice which said that that should not affect us because we don't actually belong to that particular outfit, so our servicing is done separately. Oh, I've just got some advice that says that it works with that particular outfit, so in terms of our day-to-day servicing, we should not be impacted. But that doesn't take away the stuff George talked about, proposed, slash servicing. It will impact us. Yeah, but hey, ka pai?
Ani pāhuru wai tēnei rohe Ngati Porou wan. Mihi ana kia koe. Anui te mihi kia koe. My question's about you or George will wanna, but just an update on Te Puia Hospital, where we're at with that, and if the birthing unit being able to have our mokopunas on the coast. So is also one of the issues that's come to my ears around the hospital is housing for staff. I understand we've had, and this is from the Pakirikiri there, who have had, we have a lot of international to Te Puia, which they love, and they love our people, but there is a lack of housing. Koina, koe rāku pātai. Got them?
And having read that our birthing unit is under repair presently, and it's hopefully due to be Yes, so, and apparently we've joined our Ngati thing. Kapai? What was that big question? The hospital. Housing. Housing for staff. That might be a bit out of my league. At the end of the day, it's about we can only do what we've got with what we've got. Our intent is pure to try and improve access, quality service. As concerned as you guys are, as Ngati Porou beneficiaries, we all got. Thank you.
We've got 2 more questions and that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Nā tātou ko ngā mihi ko mihia, ka tika ngā kaihanga mō ngā mea katoa, ma tātou kia ora tātou me te mate ngō tōna tama tō tātou nei ariki ai Ukraiti. Ki te whare e tū nei, pupuri ana ngā mātauranga a koe a koro tēnā koe tūpakari nei. Toitu, te mana wahine. Thank you. I appreciate everything you've done for us. Tēnā koe, kia tātou katoa, ko hui hui mai nei, nui te mihi, nui ngā mihi, kia koutou hoki. My pātai. Are we able to empower the mental health in tō tātou nei rohinga? In the mental health industry as a drug 20 years now, and yeah, he's one of the Indians out there doing the mihi, and ki runga te mana o Ngāti Rangi me te whānau ahine tā crucial. It's quite crucial. Drugs and alcohol ain't the problem. Me hoki whakamuri ki o mātai nei mātua tūpuna. They don't have no doctors, they don't have no nurses, they don't have dentists. Kotora. So my question is, do we need to build more homes for our staff? I'm a builder, I'm a current builder, and I'm keen to build some homes. But it's time to reach out to those that know. Our whānau, there's heaps of them. I've got heaps of whānau, the Haupori, te hei. We're all one. It's not Māori, it's not Pākehā, it's human beings. So how can we empower the mental health side of things? Kia ora.
That's an awesome question, and it is something that the board has been working on, and like I said, that's been something that's been identified by walking through Ngati Porou region, and whānau do see that as a huge need. And like I said, you know, mental health is actually catching ourselves early sometimes, just catching ourselves early, having support. So it is a key focus area for us going forward, and I see our chairman Nā has, as a board, and I think we're all here, all the Ngati Porou Oranga board is present, hearing what you've said, and and putting a lot of focus into that. I have to make sure next year when we're standing here, we got some improved, that we know what our starting point is today and how we've improved upon that in the next year. So thank you very much.
Services. Mine's not really a question to Ag, mine is really a request of the whānau actually about not reaching out herself for the doctor. Same goes for mental health. Common thread in mental health is, and one just happened to me yesterday, just happened to happen. Services in Tairāwhiti are saying to me, whānau are coming here because they don't trust the confidentiality of well. In the survey that was done in 2019 across the motu, the The biggest kōrero that came out of that was we want our own to work with us. Ngati Porou Oranga and Hauora have worked extremely hard to get our own. It is helpful though if you bring it to me or you bring it to the manager of that service. It is helpful. If it truly is happening for you, bring it back to us. No good about are held accountable. I'm going to make sure that that's not my service or my people that are doing. The reason why I want to say that is because I want the hospital to keep going as well. I want the Ngati Porou Te Puia Springs Hospital to still be here for my mokopuna and my mokopuna there. And I want other Ngātis to be looking after my Ngati Porou mokopuna. I was very proud to be at a hui and with a room in Wellington, a room full of Pakirikiri, and we had to identify which organisation we belonged to. And one a lady got up and she mihi to me across the room, and I thought, shit, I don't even know you. But yeah, no, sweet. And she said, I've just Googled the only iwi-owned hospital in New Zealand. And from there, that kōrero grew to the world.
Kapai.
Katahi no kua mutu te ripoata Ngati Porou.
Kia ora tātou. Oh yeah, everyone online, eh? Oh, kia ora whānau. Who's 9 point something FTEs, GPs. How many of them are full-time and how many are locums? Kia ora.
50-50. And you know, one of the things about doctors, and this goes back for years, this country actually was founded on running their own practices and running a business, and they happen to be doctors. And they've actually come to that time in their lives where they've retired or retiring, and the new doctors spend something like 8 years, hard work, training and becoming doctors. And the choice that they make is actually not to become GPs and do the work that the old doctor did with their psyche. They want to be locums, because when you're a locum, you have a lot more freedom. So it is not as simple as Ngati Porou Oranga not wanting to. Always been the intent of any health provider is to get doctors. So all we get people to live in rural New Zealand when they have wives and children. Your husband, permanent doctors, I take my hat off to them. So thank you very much. Okay, and Mr. Chair, thank you all for being relatively kind to me. Kia ora.
Koina hoki te mutunga te kōrero a Agnes Walker.
The chairperson of Ngati Porou spots with that lovely dashing young man down there at the doorway. Kia ora.
He pai he rawe ngā pā. Mō tō tātou nei ha hauora I te puia.
Toitu gari I whakai mai.
Te tangaire ma Toitu Ngati Porou.
There you go. Right. Here's your...
E roa rawa tēnei ripoata, kei te moho katoa koutou te kaupapa o Toitu. Ka heke mai ngā moni kia Toitu, ko te mahi koena ngā kaupapa Māori. Tai atu anō hoki ki ngā mahi. Koe nei te hui ngā pūtea I tuku natu I tēnei tau. Ko tēnei moni he mei kohia mai e... Warfala? What's his name? Willie Apiata. Me etahi moni o te runa. I toha ngia ki ngā kura katoa o te tai rāwhiti. Anyway. Papa I tautoko hia, just look at the pictures. Pay special grants. I tuku natu he pūtea hei awhi I tēnei whakāturanga o te pōka whakāta me te symposium. Anei anō etahi kaupapa I tautoko nge e Toitu nā ngā kei te mahi tuna tia ki te awa. Mata 52,000 te kaumano ki ia rohe. Ane. So, yes. Uawa ki te poari o tērā tau, the first board I te mea huki I te tau tuatahi, I pāngia te ao I te COVID. So, ka raruraru te poari tuatahi. Te tau tuarua, COVID anō, te tau tuatoru, kare mātau I tai ki ngā rohe tai ki tēnā rohe, he hao koutou hia. Ka mutu I te tau whakamutunga, ka whakaruki a tātou e te āwha, Gabriel. So, ko te poari I tērā wā, ko au, ko Wipere Mita, ko Ani Pāhuru, ko Agnes, ko Naumai Whitewood, me Ngārimu, ko Wipere kei runga tonu I te poari, ko ngā mema hau, ko Erana Keelan, me hine moa awatere, koina te poari hau. Nō reira ngā mihi kia koutou anima, ngā mihi makire mai tēnā poari, and ngā mihi ki te poari hau. Mehe pātai wā koutou, kare tika tā koutou titiro ki ngā whakāhua. Kia ora tātou. Ana te whakautua tō pātai. Here's a question over here. There's a question over here. There's some answers along here.
Kia ora. One of the funds was put out, and which was for an administrative position. You might not thank me after I talk, though. And I didn't see it in the reports either. But anyway, our rohinga, the whole cluster met, and I guess when we come back to the po, maybe it's mana motuhake, maybe it's rangatiratanga, whatever it is, need that offer. We don't need an administrator. An opportunity we would like to take advantage of for our marae.
Gave their reasons why. The board at the time said, we think this is, but we're going to turn them down, and we're going to give every rohe 50,000 a year per year for 3 years. Now it went to rohinga. I pātai mai wetahi. O hea te take, etahi ta he hapu, te maha no o ngā hapu me ngā marae kei wainganui kei roto o Ngati Porou. Koira te take wehe I roto I ngā rohinga, I te mea hoki. Ngā rohinga, mā koutou e tau patu. Kare wāhi kia Toitu, kare wāhi ki te runanga. Mā koutou e whiri. Thank you very much. Oh, we.
Kia ora, ko Michael tōku ingoa. Just a clarification first and then a question. So it mentions $1,000 per undergraduate the course, or is that a one-off grant for?
Engari, ka tautoko ngia tēnā kaupapa i atau, i atau.
Yeah. The gender balance of the applications, where it mentioned here that in last year, I guess, 181 were female and 49 were male. So is that a pattern which has been seen over many years now? Is it kind of, are males just not applying and going to tertiary education? What's driving that, and is that a concern or something that's been looked at?
Who can and who can't apply? Kare me te ete he tone taha koe tono mai. Kei tēnā te tika ngā mehihi ana te tono mai. So we don't know. Yeah. I've answered 3 questions. I'm waiting for someone to ask me money or the bag.
But my question is not about who should be applying or not. It's just, is it a concern? Is that a concerning trend that education?
Mr. Chair, if I might answer that,
Okay, well, that's fine. I just wondered what some of the thinking was around that. So thank you for clarifying that. Yeah.
Before I take my seat, I must acknowledge also our CEO, Rhonda, very much.
Kia ora tātou te whare. Upe kia korua ko taku tuahine a Rhonda. I just wonder, like when I look at the sports, I think about a lot of the Ngati Porou teams. I mean, the tyranny of distance to tournaments and participation and you know, the strategy behind supporting those guys they obviously take. And has there been any thought, and I know perhaps opportunity to seek other funding, perhaps from New Zealand Rugby included in that?
Pātai tēnā. Hea te pātai. Well, the current board has a different way of thinking about from the last board regarding sport, and we're still working. Kei te hia tonu tēnei pōri ki te tautoko I ngā mahi, ngā kaupapa hākina kina tākaro. Ai. And no questions. Too many slides. It's not on. It's not on.
Sound. Reviewing all our funding policies, and we're really keen to look at where we can get alternative funding, and you've mentioned New Zealand Rugby, and do a collaborative funding approach, if you know what I mean, which means that we can draw out and use more of our money for other cultural activities. But it is definitely a focus as to Kapu Ti. Hey.
Oh, kapai. Thank you.
Kia ora, Patrick. I just want to go back to what Aroha was saying with the what the decision. Just remember when I first came home, the fisheries company was giving annual grants to our marae. And we're giving less and inconsistently to our marae. So how does giving to a rohinga tupuna 50K that then, what's the entity that that money gets deposited into?
Within your rohinga tipuna. And the example I can give is to
another entity. We already have our marae accounts in that. Some rohinga have 6 marae, some have 8 marae. We got 7 marae. It's about being fair. Giving to each operating, functioning marae has been fair and it works. Run off and create now a rohinga trust to receive the putia and get it. It's just, can we think of more practical and flowing ways, and why can't we just give to the marae? As the political turmoil within as well, to be honest.
consider this. We're not saying
Easier for everybody on the ground because they're all operating voluntary.
strategic plan.
There is an entity in Rohinga, the chairman of one of the marae that is part of those.
They want the listeners.
Thank you very much for the consideration.
So
we can work collectively with the marae in Rohinga Tipuna 5.
Kia ora tātou. As to Hapu, we've been in the High Court fighting over our customary marine title, which was awarded to the 2 traditional Hapu in May this year. Customary marine title, we were asked and actually directed Kapuarangi Takutai Moana Trust to of this customary marine title. Then we had to go ahead and run formal 3 trustees from Te Whānau Arua Taupare. We're still in the High Court and getting the legal entity over the line. So these 2 Hapu are looking at working together forward on our managing and holding our customary title. The setting up of a Rohinga Tipuna entity, my question to Ngā and Whiti, well, Rua Taupare and Te Ao Tawarirangi have already got trustees. How are you going to formalise your trustees for your Rohe Tipuna Trust? Because is that about the Rohinga Tipuna? Hey, because we're not talking about marae here. We're talking about these tipuna of which 2 Hapu have already had to set up a legal entity to satisfy the High Court process. So the question I had was, how are you going to, the trustees that have been appointed by, formally elected by Rua Taupare and Te Ao for this Rohe Tipuna legal entity, there's conflict there, and I don't know how to fix that up. And we actually need help, and we can put a tono in to Toitu, but then you've got the needs of the other Hapu in Rohinga Tipuna 6. So, yeah, it's not really a question, it's just a statement of where we are at this point in time. Ourselves, okay? We went to the High Court and she said, can you first go back to Toko and sort yourselves out?
Tēnā koe tāhine. Speaking on behalf of Taharora Marae and Rohinga Tipuna 6. We've had this discussion too as Marae chairs, and we already have Ngā Hapu o Waipiro as our collective in Waipiro. The question that Karen raises is a really good question, because when I sought clarification on the trust that Whiti and Ngā were putting together, my simple question is, Rohinga Tipuna belongs to the settlement trust deed, but I can't hear Marae in The answer was, good question. My problem with that is my puku doesn't sit right with it. It doesn't sit right with it because not including the marae chairs, then you're not including the hapu at that particular time and the way in which we are organising ourselves now. And the fear is, so community doesn't belong to our trust reality. Tēnā tātou.
Tēnā tātou te iwi, kararaina ngātai upe rohe ngā tipuna tahi. The erua aka kaupapa, the first one is about the rohinga tipuna grant who have come in and collectively helped us through that process. And we're still having those discussions. But we've found we're managing it, and we're thankful for the offer. And we will together work out how we're going to distribute those funds, as well. Tuaka nei ki te mihi ati ki te poari, tō tātou runanganui i tāko i hiki i te kaupapa a Karakia, series number 5, tūwhaki iriwara. E kore tērā pikitia. You'll see some pretty impressive whānau, nō konei, no te kāinga, e tū ana i te mahi i roto i te ao whakaari. He whakaari, tērā pē, that could become one of our putting our hands up to do things. There's an opportunity. Tū hei kai whakaari, e hara i te mahi māma, I know. I did it for 9 days, never again. Mihi nui ki o tā. Hey? What? Oh yes, and also while I'm standing, I'm really serious, although I'm joking. We have got a depth of people in our iwi that are actors and are very capable actors. What's missing is to be housed. My daughter, for example, has had to move to Wellington, in Auckland, up there. She has to live there because there's nothing at home. There's nothing here to promote the ao whakaari company here. There's no kāinga. And there are hundreds of them, probably thousands of Ngati Porou, because we're really good at acting. We're really good at that. We're drama queens. Tangata rongonui mo tērā āhuatanga. Hoi anō, kia pai, kei raro.
Okay, I'm not scared, but I'm finishing with Sir Selwyn. I'm not scared of questions, I mean, but kei te haere te wā.
Nei tāku ki te rohinga tipuna. E whitu ngā marae. I tēnei rohe. Aha, ko karau i pōti roto i tēnei rohe. E whitu ngā te mahi mā koutou o roto i tēnei rohe. Whakapūmau i o ngā marae, o ngā hapu. Mai nei, he kaupapa, he tuitui a koutou i tēnei rohe. Haunga te taha moana, haunga te auta. Engari, ko te whakapapa e korona Karen, mō te ao tāwarirangi mō rua taupare. I tu atu i era, koe anō, ka hono atu ki ngā hapu o roto. Kei tā rora, e whānau e ni te kura. Nō roto i te whānau rua taupare, te whānau a te ao tāwarira. Nā reira, me hui hui koutou. Kārawarawa, roto i tēnei rohe. Kei te tika.
Kia ora tēnā tātou, e mihi ana. Aroha tēnei taku tainga mai ki reiti, e whanomo taku big sister. Te aroha e puta mai e kōtau o tēnei rohinga. Taku pātai inoi rānei kia tātou,
mo tēnei rohe e kōrero ana.
Kare te haere. Oh, yes, kei te haere nei. Kia ora e te iwi. Kare aku pātai, tū noa nei ki te tuku mihi atu ki a koutou, te poari o Toitu, poari tawhi. Tēnei te reo o te hoko whitu atu, kei te mōhio pēr koutou katoa. Mātou ko te parihao hikurangi, te huarahi roa ki te matatini. Nō reira e tū ake nei ki te tuku mihi atu ki a koutou, nā koutou i tākoha mai te pūtea nui, kia ea ai te kaupapa nui nei. Koira tērā, kare au pirangi te tōroa ngā kōrero, hoi anō mihi tū. Ki te rōpū o Toitu i homai pūtea ki aua, kia whai atu i taku tohu pairua, kua tutuki pai, hareruia ki te atua. Ko tōna kaupapa, ko te mātauranga, ko te uru tomo mai o te reo Pākehā ki ngā kura kaupapa Māori. Hoi anō, koina noiho taku tū ki te mihi atu, me te mihi tonu ki a koutou katoa mō ngā mahi ko tutuki i te tau. Tēnā tātou.
Ka tira te ingai mana whakaro ke rungarawa e ara e tigai pirina ki piri ngā marae e tunua ngā maunga e tunua ne auera e tamama e ngā tahira
Hea mana ko se Robert McLeod.
At today's meeting, most of my board members, the Chief Executive, whereabouts are you, Henare? Because I might just have to get his support if there's any tricky questions that come my way. I'll talk about the board and the changes at the end of the slide. So, just growth in this, and indeed it's portrayed in this diagram as a subsidiary of the own subsidiary alongside its sister entities, Ngati Porou Oranga and Toitu. The specialised nature of these subsidiaries, they've got a job to do, and this structure in these specialised boxes rather than have them all carried on in a single box. So we're supposed to, in a sense, be tohunga in these functions. Now, is to be the commercial arm of the organisation, and that sometimes is controversial in Māoridom as to whether that focus is the right one, but I think that if you look at the trust deed, that's been the design of Ngati Growth. And also I personally believe, as does my board, that the best thing we can do for the organisation is to actually maximise the flow of dividends or resources of the organisation who have the responsibility directly for producing the outputs to the iwi. The social outputs come from the other arms of the organisation. Our role is to provide resources to the provider between a current dividend and a future dividend. That is a bit tricky, making that trade-off, but that's one of the strategic issues in consultation clearly from the Runanga as a whole. How do we actually trade off? Because the more we distribute and growing that putia over time. So you can see there's a bit of a tricky trade-off there. So in a sense, we make investments and we manage businesses. The report, the annual report that you've got has got a lot of the detail. Okay, if you want to really drill into that detail, I recommend that you have a look at those reports. For the next diagram, where do I point this thing? There we go. This diagrammatically depicts how we actually produce our returns and where we're producing them, particularly in rohe versus out of the rohe. Is what we call funds under management, and that's been the case for a long time. So in fact, since inception, my ancestors kind of in running Ngati Porou Holding Company took most of the settlement and dedicated it to financial investments. This is stocks and bonds, sort of passive investment. The advantage being you diversify across a whole resource with a third party, then you're actually minimising the active management of that money, which if we do active more wages. So we say in our industry, we describe that as being passive as opposed to being active. We're best to hand the resource to a third party and get them to do it. Now, we're not 100% in that mode today. We're actually probably fair to say in the current generation of proactive, more active investing, which we kind of characterise as direct investing. Main reason for that is the view that investments will produce higher return than the passive investment. That trade-off that's another trade-off though, because the beauty of the passive model, which we've historically done, is that the risk of the return is lowered. But arguably you might actually get a lower return actually also if you do too much of that. So we are shifting the needle a bit to more active. For those people who also want your investments to be rohe based, or if you want to produce an additional benefit of creating employment, nudge in the direction of direct investing, right? But so there's trade-offs again through all this thing. The total assets of the commercial company amount to about 275 the Runanga's total assets, if you have a look at the balance sheet. We've only got about 25 million of debt, and for those amongst you, so that's probably gladly to say very few of you, there is an identity which is that the total assets must equal the total debt and the total equity, right? So if we've got 275 million bucks worth of total assets, we have 25 million of debt minus the debt. When you go to the bank and you ask for a loan, what the bank asks you typically to do is list your assets, things that you own, take off the liabilities that you... There's about 55 million of that that's invested in the rohe. So it's not immaterial. It's about 20%. Funds under management, okay? Which essentially stocks and bonds, shares and equities and that kind of stuff, that's kind of, that's not really... Basically, we've got to take the funds out of management when we're making the decision about, well, what is actually invested here versus invested elsewhere. So that gives you a bit of an idea of the macro. Now, in the year, we're reporting on the year ended 30th of June 2024. And in that year, we have had a very good result of around $10 million of profit, but we actually paid a $6 million dividend, which includes interest to Toitu. So we paid 1.6 million. It's an in-substance dividend, but it's effectively legally interest to Toitu, and the balance of the 4.4 million was that in a sense demonstrates the point I'm making that 6 profit essentially is going to the Runanga, and that's in. We've got 275 million of total assets and 220 million of assets invested outside the Rohe, including the funds under management. All right? So that gives you hopefully a good overview. A little bit about what I've just gone through, which is the profit performance. The profit on the prior year by 1.3 million. It was a really... I mean, New Zealand is not boasting in this period a fantastic economic situation. The government has been running its books in the red through this period. Its net deficit is like a net loss on the government's books. We've had that in the country. Unemployment has been rising, inflation's been a problem, and obviously interest rates have remained somewhat high, but they've been coming down. So it's not really been a fantastic year. If you go and look at the business confidence surveys through this period, they're all pretty bleak, coming a little bit rosy inflation throughout this period. So I think in the prior year. So it's very nice that we can, you know, in each year make money of that amount. Just sort of highlights there. Where did these profits come from? Why did we do so well? Well, in the managed funds area, it's interesting for those that know the United States share market's been on fire, particularly through the tech stocks. Many people would say it's kind of gone beyond the realms of possibility. Really, and caught that wave. Again, another trade-off, because prior to doing that, many people would have said, oh, those tech stocks look pretty, a decision that we've got to make ongoingly. The seafood business, which we have, which is a phenomenal business, producing phenomenal returns. Performer in our portfolio, and again, it's not in Rohe, but certainly it's in our sweet foods area. So Dean Moana has been particularly guiding us and leading us in that investment. We've also improved our costs, and we've been dealing well, I think, with some of our challenging businesses. And I'll go through some of those in a moment. Obviously, there have been some sad outcomes in the sense that we've had to close some of these businesses, including Ngati Berries, for example. You know, but ultimately, at the end of the day, taking loss-performing businesses out of the mix is part of the reason why we get this better bottom line result. This is another sort of depiction, essentially, of the in-Rohe business activity that we monitor. And I'll just quickly run through these business activities here on the left of the slide. We've got the two aspects of honey, which is sort of the bee collection and the farming end of it. And then you've got the extraction plant, which is the second Piromere category. So, but that's sort of combined honey business. That we've got the two forests. We've got Makarika Farm, contiguous to Pakihiroa. The native nursery is an emerging business closure in the sense that we transferred the Ngati Berries resources into a native nursery, and that's actually resonated extremely well with the community. Reasonably optimistic that it makes very good use of the assets that have come out. The Puanga farm is also on the list. We've also invested in. Captain Morgan is one of those. And I'll talk a little bit about Captain Morgan in the next slides. So despite the fact that there's a clean-up job that's needed there, the reality is that we got into that asset at a very fortunate price because of the government grant. Why not? If government is basically going to make our asset cheap. then why not is our obvious reaction. We've also got the fish truck, the child, if you like, of the transferred this business into a fish truck, and that's getting very good feedback from the community in terms of its reach within the Rohe and also the prices that are being captured there. So I might just now quickly come through some of these asset businesses and give you a bit of colour. So if we start with Hapu Berries, that, as you know, was a joint venture between Ngati Porou and Hapu, which in a sense, of course, all part of the same waka anyway, in my view. And basically it was struggling for some time and actually making material losses. Certainly at the time I became chair, it was struggling and the results were not strong, and as a result, disparity between the partners in financing these deficits and these losses. Pressure into the system. It's fair to say, though, that Henare and his team did a very good job of taking a very, very substantial loss down to a break-even position in the June 23 close, which essentially also put on the radar the possibility of remodelling Hapu Berries, extending it into a more diversified offering rather than just a concentrated offering, and seeing, testing essentially as to whether a change to that business model would be viable. We spent a lot of time doing that. I think at the end of the day, both partners were not prepared to put the financial capital in to take it to an alternative step, and ultimately concluded in unison, without tension or friction, that the best thing was to call it a day. And so that's essentially what's happened. I think with the minimum of losses as a result, I think, of the measures that were taken in the run-up slide, the assets of that business were transferred into a native nursery in Korea, and that's essentially, as I say, has been received very well, and we're very pleased with the productive use of those assets on that reformation. Now, real profitable, we felt that in the ongoing sense it was unsustainable. An acquisition gave us the opportunity of transferring a lot of that activity to the Captain Morgan business site, and also we took the view that the fish truck upgrade was something that was needed in the community. We've moved to that. The feedback, both by way of experience of the demand from the truck and also from the economic results through the income statement, demonstrate to us quite strongly that we've done the The truck goes to 6 stops compared to 1 as a prior stop. It comes all the way up to Te Runanganui, reducing price reductions to Ngati Porou consumers of around 20 to 30% relative to the prior arrangement. And it expanded its offerings from fish to meat packs as well. For those of you who are from, if anything that I've been told, if it's half true, then I'm sure that you will all shout your applause for that. And there's also a pre-order function that's basically now operative in support of consumers getting access to the products. It does lead on to expanding the supply of that arrangement. There is a retail strategy. Essentially, we have had various vendors of businesses on to us and testing whether we would be willing to acquire some of their properties, and we have been reasonably positive about that. It's a backdrop to the Captain Morgan transaction that we do think that those businesses are profitable, but we've been quite happy with the idea that we transfer a lot of those profits to the consumers, Ngati Porou consumers in particular, through the prices that those businesses charge. I mean, obviously if we drop the prices by discounting, we actually make less profit, but loss, and it's not actually consuming our other resources, then there is a why not response, I think, to that. So that does reflect the sentiment that we've got, that we should effectively expand these retail offerings on the coast and run them. Because the other thing too is that they are property plays. Captain Morgan is primarily, from an economic point of view, a property play. It's a very good property. Getting back to the fact that Ngati Growth doesn't want to really be too labour intensive in running businesses, it would make sense to seriously consider the landlord option with these kinds of assets, again, so long as essentially we're getting a good rate of return on the asset. Bearing in mind, these are quite exciting. If I come to Captain Morgan, many of you will possibly know that this is under renovation. You have the food offering there at the moment. Most people tend to be pretty negative about it. We take the view that that's something hanging fruit opportunity to make something better for consumers. The site is very attractive. Obviously the summer period is coming up and we've got the unfortunate timing of renovation. Actually bifurcate that renovation and still be operating the main component of that store through the Christmas period to catch the Christmas demands for the kind of luxury items of milkshakes and ice creams through that sunny Gisborne period. This is also an asset that's worth talking about. It's the Marriott Hotel in downtown Auckland. Being an Aucklander for the last 30 plus years, I reckon it's the best hotel in Auckland in terms of location and site and convenience to the CBD. And we've had the opportunity through the networks that we have. We've got about 13% of this asset that will perform very well. Now I'm sticking my head out. People of my background don't make these kinds of predictions. You stick your head out, your rate of return on this asset over time. That's not at all unrealistic. And again, it in a sense demonstrates what I said earlier about moving from passive funds under management more in the direction of an active asset which throws off a higher return. It's about whether we should call these transfers dividends, because it's a bit of a misnomer in the sense it makes the profit. In that paradigm, transferring resources from a part of the organisation to rather than a dividend. But we refer to these things as dividends, and that's a bit of a complexity. So look, can I just close by thanking those directors that have come and gone. Diana retired at the 30 June mark of this year, and she was fantastic as a director. We're very sorry to have lost her, but at the end of the day, everybody's got to move on and for others to come on, and that's what she has done. We've got 3 new appointments. Asked to stand up and make themselves known. Michael has got a background in iwi businesses in particular, and we're very pleased. Basically then vacated after the alternate period. Now director, she's not here today and gives her apology. Bronson Marshall, who's joined us, where is Bronson? Over here on my right. We're very pleased to have Bronson, who has very good connections, works for NZTE and very well connected in the government area, let alone in general iwi. We've also got Bailey Mackey here, who asked a question a moment ago and gave some very good ideas about rugby and his ability to help in that regard. Morris, obviously here, who's also a member of the Runanga. I think I did see Bobby earlier on in the meeting. I'm sure she's here, down there, right. Was in a similar position until the last Runanga voting. Basically, Dean sits on our board as a very valuable member. If you add that to myself, that makes a total of 7 directors at the moment. Can I also thank our staff, Ngati Growth Limited, who have worked their butts off. We've actually got some of the senior staff here also from the business. Josiah Cook is over here as the Chief Operating Officer and staff, which really these good results don't happen just on their own. So thank you to the staff. Also thank all of you for coming and listening, and I wish you all a happy and Merry Christmas, and I also wish that clearly to my staff and to my... So without further ado, I'll close my address on that point and pass on perhaps to questions, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, up the front. Oh, there, you're there.
Yeah.
Kia ora. Sorry, I'll introduce myself properly. My name's Ngati Porou Kapu Ti Puni. Ki toa tini marae, te tupuna krauara paratene te moko puorongo, nāna nei haina toku hononga, tā kā wai whakapapa, e mihi kau ana ki a tātou katoa. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your mahi. My question is, I'd like you to share your understanding on investing into carbon credits. Through the doing a native a native nursery has been a dream for me. I want to build the biggest native nursery here in New Zealand. Well, one of the biggest in the world. Here in Te Tairāwhiti, where there's a reason we're the first to see the sunlight. We can show the world how it's meant to be by showing them how we live ngā mai ki runga i te pā. That's how we're meant to be. And I'd like to share with you. I'd like to ask you money. It's a 4-letter word, he kupu Māori. What's that? The answer is mana. Hea Toitu te mana Māori motu ake. Hea Toitu te mana tāne, te mana wahine. Leading the world. There'll be no war. Nā reira Toitu, and back in the rā, the wahine are the bosses and the men. That's why nā te atua i ngā mahi physical, and mga women are master manipulators.
Can we have questions?
Question is, what's your understanding of investing into carbon credits, sir?
Okay, look, you know, the forestry asset is quite large balance sheet and gets a great deal of attention. We've got the benefit with, you know, Ngati Walker, our chief executive, came into this role as the former CEO of forestry, one of the largest forestry companies in this country. So we've got around our table very talented. First of all, the forestry asset is a controversial asset in this region, let alone other regions, given Gabriel, what has happened, and the slash byproduct of is a cheerleader for the asset. But of course, it's a large asset on our balance sheet, and it's also a large asset on the balance sheet of other Ngati Porou. And given that it's a major asset for us, we've got to maximise that value. Now, one of course is that the GDC, the regulators, and imposing potential obligations on these assets that will make them less attractive economically, and indeed could turn the returns from this category negative. So a big job that we've got actually is to manage the regulatory environment over and above the carbon credit issue. But the carbon credits, of course, fluctuate, but essentially it's been largely an inflating factor, actually strategically an important, probably arguably the most important aspect for us to take advantage of through time. So we are positive about the category. We have the category in such a large, significant value on our balance sheet that we have to actually take it seriously. So anyway, Ngati, would you perhaps like to just add any of your question?
Kia ora whānau. It's a very good question, and it's one that probably investment. And I think the challenge, particularly with Ngati Porou and our land, is we have a lot of that don't fit the current criteria to be able to take advantage. But there is a lot of work going on around biodiversity credits. So if something like that is introduced, that will be a bit of a game changer to basically give landowners, iwi and investors more options to be able to take advantage and native nurseries to a scale that could be, something like the largest in the world. And the other aspect, I guess, or some of you may have heard of that, but that's basically working outside of the current regime that we have in New Zealand. So basically you got trees that were there before 1990 and then trees after. And if you were there after, you can environment. So I think there's a lot missed for Te Ao Māori in that. You don't get the benefit of having, or looked after time. It's never really come to anything other than in recent times. Now there's actually been trades in the voluntary market overseas at the moment, and there are projects in New Zealand that hopefully in the not too distant future will start coming into fruition. And yeah.
While you're still up, two questions. First one is about the nursery. What will it be looking at growing, and what purpose it would service? One of the issues that's affecting Waihapu catchment in terms of the taiao is the riparian, and so over and above the ETS stuff, especially the flood prone, the erosion, etc. I'll answer the first one and I'll remember the second.
Yes, so I guess first I better setting up the native nursery. We come sort of in at the end. It's been a project that's been around for a while that came out of basically that focus to address the Waihapu catchment, and it's been probably a long time coming. It is some DOC funding, so you'd like to acknowledge that. And that's certainly. I'm not the native forest. You saw the picture before; it's just being built. So it's not necessarily just carbon units. We're certainly more focused on. We have our own forests. We've got maybe 22,000 hectares of land that we have to look after. In the forestry space, we've got about 5,000 of that we've replanted, and each year that's been handed back. And as that's been replanted, a big change going forward is the riparian in terms of how far you need to plant away from the waterways, particularly on very steep erosion-prone lands. So again, we sort of looked at it as another solution to, rather than order some trees from out of the region, to be able to have our own to address, some of the challenges that we face in that space as well. And then also, we had early discussions with the prior group who was running this around the different grants, etc., that they were getting to have opportunities to plant on their own whenua, but then the lack of availability for the native nursery. It'll really come out of the demand, and whether there are trees that are better for carbon, but then there are trees that are better to stabilise the whenua.
Much, or if you did talk about bees, but I watched the program on TV the other week. Excellent. My question though is, I know that we have a number of other beekeepers up the coast. From what I can see, our runanga, or you guys, are really covering the whole market or taking the market. I don't know, but that seems to be happening. My question really is, what is Ngati Growth or the Runanga doing to build independence, so helping our local businesses as well, the other beekeepers, for example?
Yes, I guess going back in the golden run times, Ngati Porou probably had about, maybe 13,000 in terms of hive capacity. So are we taking over? I think it's a sign of New Zealand and the industry. It's well past the golden times, and over that period, between probably the last 3 years, New Zealand shrunk. Come down to probably because of our balance sheet, we've been able to survive. Part of, I guess, our previous managers and governors' strategy was around the development of Porou Mere, which is the extraction facility in to work up that value chain to be able to control more of the basically, because we were always at the whim of everybody else. We had the beekeeping, but we had to rely on the extraction, on the pottling, and now I guess the market, because before it wasn't a concern, you just had to produce it and everybody wanted it. But now the demand's gone. We've, I guess our strategy is to focus on our own market, direct to really the export market, because all the value's in the high end of the honey, and the low value's mainly domestic, and that's what we've never had. Sustain our business, but to be able to grow it big enough to invigorate the whole rohe, that's the solution really. You need to be big enough that can sell the volume required to grow the whole industry here.
Tēnā koe, ko Jasmine Wāno toko ingoa no te whānau te Aotaihi Awatere Marae, whakaangiangi, kia ora. I'm also from Tangi Karoro that you've planted already, and 8,000 still to come. And also wanting to ask that there are a number of native nurseries that are resistance up and down Te Tairawhiti that would love to support. We are one of them. How can we, as separate entities, join with Ngati Growth to make sure that you're a success with what you're. The question that I'm wanting to ask is, what is it? Blockchain? Your question. Sorry. We wanted to know AI technology that will be used to help support in that endeavour to equip doing what you need to do to strengthen our fibre-based bioeconomy that we see as a potential for increasing the well-being, financial well-being of our people. Kia ora.
That's a good operational one. So I'll start with the whakapapa. It's not going to be a popular answer. So with our Crown Forest licences, in terms of the forestry stuff that we're getting handed back, that's basically the pine forest. So in terms of what we're replanting in our current holdings, and in terms of moving forward, again, I'm not the expert in native trees, but we're currently recruiting. We've got our advisory that's starting up next week. Is that Josiah? That's Graham Atkins. So, you know, I and say I know more than him in this space. And the next role we're going into is the forest, first of all, surveying our land in terms of what we need in our forests, on our farms, etc. And then working with the rest of the industry and whānau is where we'll develop, I guess, the orchard plan in terms of what we're going to grow. But the focus and target is to, other than try and bring in a strain from somewhere else. But yeah, like I say, I'll leave that to the experts.
H. Wairehu rohe Ngati Porou tū. You don't need name. My question is regards to an answer from perhaps one of the people who actually deal with your investments relating to page 14 of the financial statements regarding all the So my first part of the question is, what is the annual report that 59% of our current asset allocation is in equities, not totaling into equities necessarily in New Zealand or in Aotearoa? Because most of the equities in page 14 relating of the country, Trans-Tasmans, which is fine. I just want to know, how did you come to the conclusion to invest in those to a moderate amount, and what would be the strategy for that proceeding in the future?
Okay. The equities allocation that is of, first of all, we have a SIPO, a Statement of Investment Policy, and we have to operate within the boundaries set by that SIPO, and of course up that SIPO in consultation with the runanga. We also, of course, have an expert advisor, which was my fiduciary, renamed Mapua. Actually, we have Greg Peacock here on my left as a principal in that organisation that we work very closely with in designing the asset allocation, which is essentially the heart of your question, is the asset allocation in the category which I described earlier as funds under management. It's fair to say that we put most of our effort, our focus, because first of all, equities as a category is a very diversified category. To the extent that we narrow that category, for example, to our own rohe or to Aotearoa, that is essentially reducing the diversification and increasing the risk. And also, as I mentioned, that the top line performer in equities in the last 2 years has actually been the US tech stocks. The NASDAQ is the stock exchange for that, and essentially that's where we've got most of our uplift. So what we have to keep an eye on, obviously, is the downside. We're not expanding in that particular category at this point because we think those assets are very pricey. We're on the winning side of that uplift because we got there when the prices were lower, clearly. And we have to make a decision now as to our exit strategy. So I think it's a good funds under management category should dominate. I think that ultimately that will continue in the near term. I think, as a rate of return, an expected rate of return, that is the category that produces the highest amongst most passive categories at this point. But Greg, I mean, it's putting you on the yell out at your highest pitch, you can be heard. But anything to add to that before I then ask? Perhaps a mic can make its way across to Greg in the corner here on my left. He's got one. And then I'll ask Henare to say a few words.
Thanks, Rob. real privilege to be here. As Rob said, the reason for investing in equities is to get diversification. So, you will own shares in thousands of companies around the world. I would say that the largest exposures would be to the large companies, the large growth companies in the US. So, you will own shares in NVIDIA and Microsoft and Apple and so on. And, as Rob said also, we think those shares are expensive. They've been expensive for a while now. Our crystal ball is no more illuminating than anybody else's, so is to not try and get too cute.
Try not to bore everyone anymore, but yeah, I think hello. The question was probably a bit bigger. So there's a lot of diversification within the managed funds. There's equities, there's fixed interest, there's alternatives, there's gold, there's private equity. So there's Australian funds, there's US, there's New Zealand. What are we doing to move away from, I guess, the managed funds? As we've got a direct active investment strategy to get the higher returns, I guess. So over the next 5 years, we're looking at area as well.
Hello? Oh. Here, Ngati. Are you guys? Two questions. I think you just answered my first one in terms of gold and silver, investing in that space. The second one is, have you, like Ngati Growth, have you actually looked at creating our own bank? In Canada, a lot of native tribes run their own banks and run their own petrol stations. I'm just asking if you have looked into that space. Thank you.
Okay. It's fair to say.
Getting a growling from my left.
Just on that question about banking, I think Ngati Growth on its own is not likely to be able, would be able to do that on its own. Recent Netflix production, that is an exception of which you emulate on a small basis, But it is true that we have been approached over time, from time to time, by promoters of taking stakes in banks. And indeed, Kiwi Bank was talked about by the last. It didn't ultimately go that way, but ultimately, a lot of this was subject to non-disclosure agreements, so I can't talk openly about these approaches. But iwi is being pursued and constantly thought about by a relevant segment of our investment community. So open to any. I don't believe we should go with a closed mind on anything. If it makes its way to the table in the way that it has, then it's usually worth at least exploring. So it's not a no answer. It's just that it's not likely given strategy on our own. Yeah.
Tanako, thank you very much for the overview of many of the different business activities. One I just wanted to ask about was under the agri. Is there any quick update on the financial performance of that part, please? And the second part was, if you have a relevant benchmark, thank you.
Yes, well, Henry, to answer the agricultural piece, which is actually a large, and then law here, that's a very large part sectorally of what we are doing. In the funds under management side, which is where I think your second question comes to, we have a benchmark. So essentially we've got to compare ourselves to what next best alternatives is kind of the way I think about it as a benchmark. And my fiduciary is pleased to say that we are in a good shape in terms of that comparison. So answer on the agricultural.
So our agri portfolio is pretty much forestry and farming. Forestry's done okay, and I guess we were sort of saved by the fact that we don't have any harvest for about 14 years, so we're just planting. We had a loss of around 170,000. That's not so. I think a lot of farms, I've been to a couple of farm AGMs lately, been in similar or much worse positions, and sort of goes back to the the question around they've only been able to sustain themselves through having the diversification of other income streams coming off their blocks. Been hit by the price of red meat, particularly coming going to China, which is we're just starting to see those improvements now. So hopefully that benefits is going to be much more than limited to Ngati growth, but to all the farms around the coast.
Thank you. Is that it? That's it?
Kapai, thank you very much.
Koe ngā pā mō Ngati growth. E mea rawa nei whakautu ngā pātai. Hoi nora koe tētahi pātai mō pārui mo tētahi o ngā pātai I runga te live stream kāre kōrero tia. Nō reire te iwi me mau tūne mai a kuni ka whakarongo tātou ki ngā kōrero mo ngā piuta ko te kai kōrero ko Leonard Warid. Ko Steve Osler ke.
Ka tangi te Takangi hoki ahau tihei Māori. Ko te mihi tuatahi ki re hunga mati. Nō reira pāri atu, hoki atu, whaki atu atu rā. Rātou kia rātou, tātou kia tātou. Ko tēnei mihi atu kia koutou e aku rangatira, e hui tahi nei e tēnei rangi. Nō reira tēnā tātou katoa. Ko wai rā tēnei. Ko Nin tuku awa. Ko Aisini tuku iwi. Ko Malton, Lincolnshire, England tuku marae. Ko Steve Osler tuku ingoa. Ko aho te Group Finance Manager. Te Runanganui o Ngati Porou. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you very much for having me again. For my boss, the Chief Financial Officer, Leonard Warren, who whānau commitment and so couldn't be here today. So it's my pleasure to take in his stead. So acknowledging him, I'd also just like to quickly acknowledge the auditor, Fail, who I think is standing over there in the corner. Scott, if you can just raise your hand. Scott's from PricewaterhouseCoopers. They're Group Financials. It's a pleasure having Scott, and so to give some assurance at these things, to say that we've got this right, and Scott's done that. So thank you, Scott. So as I crack into it, and I'm very aware that, as happens, lunch comes close after me, and so everyone's hungry by the time I get to my bit, so I'll... A quick overview, recap of what I'm presenting here. So these are the group financials. So that includes all the entities, if you like, under Nui control, and so we basically add them all together. So that includes the parent Nui, that includes Ngati Porou Oranga, it includes Toitu Ngati Porou, our charitable arms, and then it includes Ngati Growth that Sir Rob just spoke about, and all the subsidiaries under that. So we basically take results, and then that's what we present as the group. And it's from that we can then derive a profit and loss, and that's this first page here. So a performance, if you like, over a year from 1 July 2023 to 30 June 2024. Okay, so our income and expenses over that period, and as you can see on the board, two particular areas I'd like to talk to. First, the top one, the service delivery income. Primarily government contracts received in recognition of the work we do in the Hauora space. That increased almost 10 million between 2023 and 2024. So that's a really positive result for us. Effectively leveraging government to give us money to be able to do things and help the people. And then we use that to pay for people to do that work, predominantly. So we pay salaries, we pay contractors, and those people are on the East Coast, and so we contribute a really positive story. Now, if I can just talk about the pattern, the theme, it was 28 million. In 23, it was 36 million, and now it's 46 million. So it's one years that we're really proud of. And then the other, the realised or unrealised gains on assets, that goes back to talking about, which Greg and the team have done. That's a return over 10% in that area. That's a really good return that base to help us, and that's reflected here. So those two things have meant that the total group revenue has increased. It's a big return. Expenses for the not-for-profit stuff has gone up as well, so we've paid more people and we've paid for the projects to be completed, and a little bit of increased finance costs. So interest rates were relatively high in that year, but also we took out, so long as you make more money on what you put the money into than the interest you pay, and that's what we did. So so the group performed well in that sense. So this next slide is about a position, a position in time, and you can think of it as like a camera flash at that point in time. So on the 30th of June 2020, assets and liabilities, okay? And then the difference between those is, if you like, the book value are net assets or equity that Sir Rob mentioned. So it's what the, if you like, the group is worth in total. So we had a little bit of current assets and non-current assets. Current assets went a little bit down because we had a bit too much cash at that. We'd still got plenty of cash, but we had a high point of that. So we reduced that and we invested. And we also had some projects that we were working on. For example, so that was, if you like, a work in progress, and that became a non-current asset. Something that became a non-current asset. So they went up, and liabilities went up a little bit again, mainly in the borrowing space, as we used leverage to make money. Has gone up from 251 million to 259 million. So it's a positive. The assets are being kept safe and grown. Okay. I should talk to a little bit. There's a new item just for the ones wondering, in case there's a question. It's a new thing. It's because we've, as part of the honey extraction facility, we sought partners and so they have a part of that. And the Whetu Matarau someone else's, but by far majority of that number is ours. So it's a really positive thing. Cash, I briefly mentioned, if I just take a step back and big picture, of the year, and we had 16 million at the end of the year. So we drew down a little bit of cash. Why did we do that? Well, actually, at the end of last year, we had a high point for a net. We reinvested, so it wasn't cash anymore, and we used it for some operations. So we took it down to 16 million, but the group as a whole remains in a very healthy cash position. What it is, yes, we've used it in operations, and yes, we've invested in things, money out in borrowings to use these things. So, so that made good sense to us. So if I summarise things quickly, yes, net profit, revenue, on with the increased revenue that we had, but still with a very positive result. Assets. This slide seems very positive, and it is, with a note of caution for the year times that the country is going through, and some of the questions that have touched on this as well. We are not immune to everything, especially in the government space with us so good in that space, if we can level that out, while trying to make cost efficiencies where we can. So there are efficiency gains that we can make to protect the organisation, proactive in this space, then we can try and keep our charitable arms and our not continues to go very well in the equity markets in the year to date. Portfolio will then play its part in keeping the group safe, if that makes sense. That is most of what I wanted to talk about. I realised I was just leaving on a bit of a tougher note because we were in tough times. Talk about something else. Forgive me, George, I know I'm holding people here, but my brother-in-law is a principal, and he found episode 26 of Ngati Link, produced in 2003. Albie thought I'd stole this from her little stash, but no, it was my brother-in-law's, I can assure you, Albie. And in it talks to kapahaka exponents rock Paroranga. Stories. Now, I was just looking through, I don't know every face, but I saw Sir Selwyn at the back. He was dancing away. And then I thought I saw, but it didn't make sense because it was for the over 60s. And then he said, no, that's my father there at the back there dancing. And the reason I bring it up is that as someone come from Britain, my daughter, forgive me talking whānau for a bit, my daughter was born in Britain but raised here from very young times. She's 9 years old now. She just did her kapahaka. And she did the kapahaka across the group was really inspiring, for you guys, for your tamaneki and mokopuna. So be assured that the culture and the heritage that is coming through here is Oh, I've got to do my motion. 1 second. Oh, I've gone too far. Hold on. How do I go back? Here we go.
Those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary. Is that the motion he moved or what didn't appeal?
Selwyn, yeah, we've got to do both, and I might have missed a slide.
It's been passed.
It's been, okay, and I'm not sure I've got a slide for my next one. Have I got my next one? No, I haven't. I've missed.
We're going to move here. Second at the back here.
Sorry, Tracy Tangi Heidi moved up.
Those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, carry.
E aku rangatira, ma te mahi tahi ka ea nawa wata. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Koe re ngā kōrero Steve Osler, me ngā kōrero mo whairawa, ngā kōrero mo ngā piuta o Te Runanganui a Ngati Porou o te rai o tātou Ngati. Ko he kia parata, ko ia te tumuaki tuarua o
Substantive item of the agenda standing between you and lunch. We've all been sitting here for a really long time. I'm going to summarise, but it would be helpful, I think, if everybody just got up, turned around again and then sat down, because you have been sitting for so long. How does this work?
Oi no re tēnei wā kei te whātorotoro haere te iwi, e haroa nei rātou e noho wana no reira. A kuni ka hoki atu tātou ke he ki a parata.
No. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou e whakawhaiti nei, mō tēnei iwi kāinga nā koutou I manaaki I a tātou I tēnei rā. Kia koutou, kia tātou, ngā mihi nui te whai wāhi I tēnei rā hātarei, te haramai ki te Runanganui, me a koutou pātai. Nō reira ngā know me, and I am the Deputy Chair of Runanganui o Ngati Porou. I am reporting to you this afternoon two significant pieces of work that our new board has carried out on me. Those of us here at home and those of us kei te whenua, kei te ao rānei. So they are, the first one's not that sexy, but it is actually essential, and that is the statutory framework that Te Runanganui operates under. And by that, I mean the group of Te Runanganui o Ngati Porou, not simply our board as the parent board. And then I'm going to go on to the more exciting part. That is the strategic direction that our new board is proposing with significant work over the balance of the term of our board. So it is a year this month that 12 of us were successfully elected to the board, and as you heard Patrick say, he's from Te Ao Tahito. No, he didn't actually say that, but Patrick and Nā are the two trustees that have come forward from the former board. Now, in recognition of the amount of and how important particularly the strategic direction is, I just want to assure you that two things are, we're going to gallop through this, or maybe canter. We are having the 4th of January at Uepohatu. It is the day after Pā Wars, and we are hopeful that those who are energetic and athletic, who have actually tasted for you, to excite you about the possibilities and to stimulate ideas that you've gone too fast. It isn't. This is intended to, and then for there to be more detailed engagement on the 4th, and then we want to have a program of ongoing engagement, communication with you all through all of next year and in the term of this board. Ka pai? Ka pai. All right, so the first item that I'm going to be addressing that is the statutory framework, the law that Te Runanganui work within. In the past, when there has been a review of this are being made, then we are required to take that to a special general meeting. That has not happened in this review. This is much more housekeeping review to make sure that errors or minor errors or spelling or aligned with the Trust Act that was itself updated, and we have worked with that facilitated that work with us is Te Ao Pare Jews, he mokopuna te kapunga, and she provided the requisite expert lawyer with us, and we had a little team working on that, and then our board considered each of our reports tell you that we are recommending that this meeting accept the updates. Now, there are two assurances you can have. One is that the specific tracked changes of the bill, of the deed, I beg your pardon, are on our website, and the analysis that supported that is on our website. And really what we are saying to you is that we have relied on technical legal experts in this regard. The board has assured itself that the updates are satisfactory and comprehensive for where we are now. And we reserve the possibility that with the fresh strategic direction, we might want to make some transformational changes to our deed. And if that is the case, we will come back to you and talk about what that is, and we will call a special general meeting if that is what happens. Marama? Kapai. All right, so I'm therefore not going to take you through every detail of the provisions and clauses that we have updated, but I am updated the parent board's trust deed, and we've updated the trust deed. We have put on pause the review of Ngati growth. They are not established under a trust and have a different legal framework. And we also have put on pause the Ngati Porou Oranga, because in the Hauora restructuring a couple of years ago, they were modernised and updated, and we will talk to each of those boards about whether there needs to be any new alignment arising out of the strategic direction. Okay, so the recommendation therefore for the trust deed is, I'll tell you what it is. We are simply asking you to note this 2024 trust deed review report on the effectiveness of the and the proposed amendments to those deeds. There. Ag. No, it depends what the question is. Tira? Taiho? I don't think it's incumbent. Is Tira here? Yes. Oh, I don't think it's caught by this.
So Act, where there's a requirement for the changes of the constitutions of the MEOs. So there is a requirement to have those changes made. And I think there's a time frame of like maybe a year or 2 years at the maximum. We have got to do that.
Yeah.
So just making that point.
Yeah, no. The hui, I think, was attended on behalf of the board by Whaimotu Jews, and I understand there will be changes needed also in the shareholding structures of Aotearoa Fisheries and other entities, so that's an ongoing piece of work. Oh, sorry.
Let's not get sidetracked by that. Particular deeds that the updates we are talking about constitute house, which if we do need to amend, we can capture in step 2, and then there would be a special general meeting. Okay? Kapai. All right. So simply we're asking that the AGM note this. Can I have a mover that it be noted? Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen. And a seconder? Okay, it's bright lights out there. Hunara. And put the motion? Aye. Kapai. So now we're going to review. The way that this presentation is going to operate, I'm assured, but we've seen the connection drop off all through the morning, is that there will be a key slide that I'm speaking to, and then there will be a rotation of faces and of your relations that are showing us the diversity of Ngati Porou people here and away to both entertain you but also connect you as I quickly go through the landing slide. Okay, so this is about the strategic direction. It is not yet the strategic plan. When we develop a strategic plan off this, we will also be expecting that our subsidiaries, part of the group, will align their annual plans so that we are all going in a common direction with the parent board and the subsidiary boards. Okay. So the thing to say is, and this picture will be familiar to all the loyal attenders of Hui A Iwi. And why it is up here, it is to say that although I'm about to outline a fresh strategic direction, it is located in this enduring vision and mission, and these po of the whare nui. E ki, Thomas. Hikama, I've got so many pages here, hold on a minute. Okay, so this is Te Aokairo Clark, who first deer spotting at Pakirikiri, and she is our focus. So it's time for us to, and you've heard presentations this morning. All of those activities, the social and commercial activities, we could actually, and our boards are made up of people who are experts who aren't necessarily Ngati Porou. To continue to be ready and relevant. But being Ngati Porou, that is our primary state, the robustness, the weakness, or whatever of our identity, of who we are as unique and distinct uri of this iwi from this specific place in the world. So we have our Ngati Poroutanga and the range of options that we would have to expect as a result of that. And as a result, the board has identified 7 that we think are critical to ensuring that we can both, ensure and assure our ongoing identity of people, as well as having great social, economic and environmental well-being. So, these things aren't switching around. Anyway, look at how fabulous all these, so here they are. So the first thing is that the board has been very explicit that we need to reset to the heartland. We need to be making sure that here at home we are strong and flourishing in order that we can keep the connections with the 100,000 who do not live in the heartland. So this is about making sure that here at home we are strong. And we'll give you examples of some of the steps we've already taken to start. The second one is that we want to restore and build the cultural strength of Ngati Porou and to make sure that our unique Ngati Porou me tōna mita o tēnā hapu, o tēnā hapu, o tēnā hapu kei te pakari tonu. I tēnei wā kei te haramai. So our second one is that we are culturally strong, right? There was a lot of talk, and you will see in this that it reflects the discussions and the priorities from our 13 January Hui A Iwi at Uapohatu at the beginning of the year. There was a very big priority placed on reo and tikanga to be in charge of our own lives. The next is that our hapu are the anchors of our Ngati Poroutanga. It's not Te Runanganui o Ngati Porou, it's not the boards of our subsidiaries. It is us in our hapu identity, each other and finding ways to agreeably disagree but be focused on the long-term common goal. And so our haputanga and the everyday kaitiaki of our identity, whānau and taiao. As I said, these are the 7 drivers. I'm going to come to, this is all about arithmetic, the 3 outcomes we're focused on, but these are the 7 drivers that Ngātis are confident, connected and capable wherever we are. Okay? Yep, we're of connection called whakapapa. How do we make sure that wherever we are in the world, if we're Ngātis, it doesn't matter where we are in the world, we take that identity with us. What matters is that it's restored. We all contribute, we all benefit. Ka pai? So reciprocity. The 6th one is that we are nation builders as iwi and as citizens. Ngati Porou to the shaping of our country. Yes, company, yes, in terms of the military valour of moana, also from the coast, but also Te Runanganui, the carvings and the areas, which I did as quite a young person. I was shocked to discover that not everybody their wharenui, but in our case, often in our wharekai. And that's an actual to invest in, but also to play our part in being nation builders. And this is a time for nation building. Okay, so those who have been participating in Toitu Te Tiriti in an active way, while numbers who nation building, and Ngati Porou needs to be contributing its part. And finally, ka pai? So those are our 7 drivers, and they are now. So some of you may know this haka. Papa Maru Karaka might have taught us, you Selwyn, and then you taught us. Anyway, so it goes whakarere, and that means down dips the blade of the paddle, sweeping behind, flashing before. It's from, as I said, from Kuratiwaka, and the translation is from the Ngārimu VC investiture booklet. And this young whakapapa connections here to Tokomaru Bay and to Tiki, and he's using a slack line to move between trees in the Okitu Reserve. Okay, so these are what we are recommending as our Ngati Porou our heartland, our taiao, and our local level hapu leadership and governance. That's what we use those 7 drivers that I supportive for the way that we live here, and hopefully can attract home many more Ngātis to come back here. There was this discussion earlier in respect specifically of Rohe Tipuna 6. When we talk about local level hapu leadership and governance, that is a piece of work that the board wants to work with you all on over the term of the board, but as a priority. Because we don't want to govern by slogans, okay? So, and these are common things. Oh, just give us, we want to exercise our mana motuhake. Ka pai, how's that going to happen? Just, we've got our tino rangitatanga, so that's what we're going to operate with. Great. But as My cousin Rhonda said, well, what is that? Is that by Marae, by Hapu? Is it by community townships? Is it by, charitable trusts or the ones that have been set up for the takutai? We've got so many proprietorial groups set up to look at just this little bit and that little bit, and they all overlap, and then you find that the energy is taken on who's got mana over this versus who's got mana over that. My ambition, and I'm talking just personally now, is that we get to a stage where there is absolutely one hapu level, not comes, for the purposes of maintaining, the purposes of ensuring that your whare nui, the marae, and getting back to it being the pā. The gulf between those two things. The marae has become where governments of the day have come to consult about fisheries or takutai moana. We grew up where Mum, who was brought, by the way, our mother was born here in Tokomaru Bay. Edie was from here, and this is where our connection is. Mum was brought to Porou, Rohe Tipuna 3. She never once said to us, "Ke te haere koutou ki te mana," what those two words and concepts evoke. Anyway, we need to get piti with if you're on the takutai moana versus if you're on IMPV, HQRZ, whatever. It is about what are we trying to achieve for our people, and how do we do that in the most efficient and effective way? So that's a big piece of work. What are our first steps? Oh, by the way, that picture I just showed you, people here in Tokomaru Bay will recognise this. These young people, well, not all young, no, not well. They have been coming regularly for hui about the taiao, about tikanga that they want to practice and so forth. So we thought that was an appropriate photo to have. Where are we going? Oh, okay. What are our first steps? This is Tāwhai Kura, and that is his papa, Lance Ricard, and he's helping his papa to dig the hole for his whenua. That is tikanga in practice. That is connection between generations. It doesn't have to be academic or theoretical. It's practical, this kind of kaupapa. Okay, so some things can happen quickly, but actually we can only go as fast as people want to go. And we need to go fast because there are a lot of things at risk. We have fewer and fewer pakeke, who are our link between what was and what might be. And we've got to learn as fast as we can and honour that and pass it on. Right, I'm sure there's lots of talking points, but we're moving right along here. Right, this is our first initiative. There's 100,000 Ngātis who ticked the iwi box Ngati Porou in the last census and said, that is my priority primary affiliation. Only 4,000 live in the heartland, 11,000 live in Tūranga, who don't live in either place, and we often don't even connect with each other here in the heartland, let alone with those in Gisborne, let alone elsewhere. So that's one of the initiatives we're going to be talking to you early in the new year about. How can we run a drive to get more uri to connect? This has typically occurred when we're trying to increase the register for voting. Our board is drawing a clear distinction between if you want to, if you're registering to vote in the elections every 4 years and you have to select, that is purely for voting. We are now, folks want to come home or be involved in initiatives, etc. To you about your ideas on that at Uepohatu on the 4th of, look at how gorgeous Ngati Porou people are. I mean, you just look, I just did that. Oh, here's our little one. Focus on what are the dimensions of identity. Those of you who came to the 13th of January this year when we were talking about the coalition government, about, we want to speak our reo. Good. It's not in a file in a government office. Our reo is not locked up in a vault. About the centrality of their role in this regard, and we look forward to doing so. Oh, oh no, I already said. Te ao Kairo is tāwhai kura. Look up there, I didn't realise he was in this shot. And there, look, this is our kai Karakia o te ata. Papa Bau, kei konei koe, be toa tāhua. Right. Okay. So I've already touched on this, and we will be talking to you about the kinds of ideas we have. We want, by the time the next election occurs for the board, we want heaps of people competing, standing for election for this board in 2027. What's 4 years? 27, November 27, 3 years from now, right? We will spend the next couple of years of our term as a board focused on the transition to Hapu-led governance, what kinds of things are required, the practices involved, and then be full throttle into that approach for the final year of the term of this board, which will be 2027. And Ngati Porou people will what's actually happening versus talking about it, that we are competitive to be on this board. And we want to look to actually nominate, elect, say, anei wa mātou tangata, right? Because we are using completely government implemented approaches, and so there's an opportunity for us to restore ourselves how we want our representation. I'm going off script because we haven't actually discussed this in the board, but so that's what we're talking about. Just taiho kia mutu, do you mind? Right. Thomas was the head prefect at Ngata College when I was a little former, and now still he's carrying on like that. Hang on. We want to invest in the heartland, and I indicated to you before we're taking practical steps. The board has decided that we will meet 12 months, once in each month. 6 of those and we've already started that, will be in Ruatoria, not in Gisborne, and the other 6 will rely on tonos from the Rohe Tipuna to host us in one of their pā, Marae, Wharenui, and the Ruatoria. And that's the second thing that we are going to be prioritising, is to the Heartland headquarters in our of Ruatoria, and we'll be in the process with our Chief Executive of looking at what the options are, because we also want to make sure that the staff working in Ruatoria are entitled to and should have a safe and healthy work environment. The headquarters, answering that be where the board meets, that will be where the chair will be located, and we will be moving to that over the term of this board. So those are the practical things, and then finally, why does it do that? Delivering a street, yes, so the hui a iwi, put it in your calendars. If you can't come, make sure your mokopuna or your mother or your sister, and your brothers and your husbands and your whatever's, significant others, all come along to the hui a iwi on the 4th at Uepohatu and be involved in discussing, debating, recommending some of the practical next steps. And so, now, this is Harawira Te Kaha Gardner, my mokopuna, and he's kitted up and pointing in the right direction, and there's a green light for go, okay? So the motion is that the AGM receives this report on the proposed strategic direction 2025 to 2030. Is there a mover?
Happy to move that report because I'm actually very impressed with the direction that the board is taking, and it sings in my heart from a Hapu perspective that I have lots and lots of expectations of ongoing.
Thank you for moving, Egg. Pearl, is that you, Pearl? I can't see. Yep.
All the reports.
That might be you, Thomas.
Bailey, moved by Bailey. By Thomas. Those in favour say aye. Carried. So aroha mai ngā mea o koutou e whata mai natai. Engari kia hui mātou te poari hei te marama o hepe tihema.
Yeah, I mean, we're opening the floor for general business, but for an AGM, that item should have been an opportunity for just the free-for-all. It's the AGM. So, no, we haven't? No. Okay. Sorry, who's the yes?
Albi!
Ko taia te ki te wāhanga o the general business, kei te ki te kōrero. Hui aro, a puni ka rongo i ngā kōrero kei tōna puku hei whakarongotanga ke mā te iwi.
Please don't block us now because there's part-time coming up. People have been waiting for this forum. Now to the people.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'll be cutting things short. Not to be rude, but...
Ko praurangi, tāpipirangi, ahau. I bring two, well not pātai, but just two issues to the table. You don't have to answer them. I just want it noted where I'm coming from, because one of these issues people will think is controversial, but to understand where I'm coming from in this era, meaning brought up in this, I was brought up in a highborn family, and during my childhood, I was with her when we would go to all the hui that essentially established where we are now. So that was with or Papa Api, etc. Is about cannabis. And to put it across that started in Ruatoria. Liz Ngārimu was part of that had the initial kōrero about what were sustainable opportunities for our people. And so Manukari, Pānapa Ehau, went out, talked to the ministry about getting that. And my saying that I've come from this, I dropped from grace. When I was 19, I'd done some dumb shit. They're doing worse stuff than what I was doing. But I ended up getting banished back to Ruatoria to live with my auntie Hini, of all people. And my auntie Hini kicked me out of her house for crumbs of cannabis. And when I went that low, I never came back to our people. I stayed with our people and the poorest people in our communities, our people at the bottom. So the cannabis thing is that we have a cannabis industry. We brought the cannabis to our Runangan board many times, but it's gone nowhere. And when we had Ngati Holdco, I spent time with the CEO, Shane, spent time with Wayne, and we talked about how we could try to put this into our iwi. Now, for a lot of our people, you probably still have a negative stigma about cannabis from seeing whatever you've seen. But in today, money for many communities, it's healing communities. And with all the nānara that we see around in our communities right now, a lot of it you guys will never see because what you see on the screens is not. Now, in saying that, the history of cannabis on the East Coast goes right back to our farmers. When the urban drift of the 50s happened, we had no workers. A lot of our farmers took that risk to grow. And then a lot of our whānau have done that since then. Being one who was banished from our people, our communities were helped with the money from weed. I know, Mr. Chairman, I'm having to, people can gasp because if I just say cannabis, there are people here that don't understand where it's coming from or why. Is that we're going out to other iwi who want to follow our model, but they're asking where is the House of Porou? Why isn't our runanga behind us? In saying that, what I've asked is that I would like to speak to somebody at their high capacity to have those conversations, because we've brought these conversations to the table before and they've gone nowhere. We need equal values in it. The other part I have is around our communities are plagued with the destruction of meth. We're doing burnout, stealing, no respect to our people. And as a community of Rotoria, we're just starting to make a stand now because we've had enough. And we'd like to see some of our board come to our hui next week on Wednesday and listen to what the people have said. And the thing is that we're not relying on the police. It goes back to, I'm going to throw this in here, let's talk about Mōkene. We need Ngati Porou to sort out Ngati Porou. We don't need our... What we're showing here doesn't relate to what's happening in our townships. None of those photos showed me people with meth. None of those photos showed me the kids that are struggling in our towns right now because of meth. And the biggest thing is, a lot of our... But they can't do anything because our people are meth. But the biggest thing I want to bring is that with everything you've shown, Auntie Hekia, with all those beautiful photos, is that in 20 years' time we won't have that. We are 25 years into a meth epidemic on the... I saw it in the late 90s. And people now, if you're not seeing it, we've got crack babies that are already in the system. And if we don't do anything, we're just going to have our next race of people are not going to be Ngati Porou focused. So that's all I wanted to bring.
Second person to raise this meth thing. So I'll just let you know that Anne Huriwai has been running through Huarahi Pai meth programs for the past 2 years. One avenue to follow.
With the Huarahi Pai, the Huarahi Pai is a great program, but we have no wraparound support afterwards. There's no post support. And our people, our graduates, are coming out clean, but going straight back into it.
I wasn't in answer to your question.
No, but I'm just saying because, but there's no post-recovery process for them.
Questions need to be very...
Tāku ki te kuari, ki ngā taimahi o rarau atu ki ngā kaupapa I tono mai a program. Wahaina mai, titiro me pēhea, tātou e āwhina I aua kaupapa. No te mea aua kaupapa, I kei te iwi, nā reira, Ngati Porou Ngati Growth Tātou Rarau atu ki ngā mea Tēnā pēr kei a tātou Te rongoa mo te rāwata Kia ora.
Can the questions be succinct, direct? Aroha, please.
This is a motion, but I'm
under the trustee, we're not taking any motion.
okay. And in my so I'm going to say again. This is the third time in a row where I've asked for our communication to be happening. We used to have the newsletters every month, then we went to the Ngati link, and they did restart, and now we're on stop. That's it.
Okay. Kia ora tātou, ko Kate Walker toku ingoa no Te Atanga Mate, Rohinga Tipuna 5. I just wanted to stand to say that hapu within our rohinga have expressed concern regarding kaupapa taiao managed within Trump Nui, particularly in relation to the lack of hapu engagement and participation on kaupapa taiao within or impacting our rohinga, such as cyclone debris management that was referenced in the annual report today, trek response. Thanks to the committee taiao of Trump Nui to meeting with us after various requests. That whānau and hapu are the kaitiaki over our respective wāhi, not Trump Nui. All agencies, including Trump Nui, working within or impacting our takiwa must engage with the respective hapu. It is our understanding that the committee taiao is Nui should be facilitating and providing for hapu to lead and inform kaupapa taiao in our takiwa. And it is promising to hear that that is in the strategic direction of. We now require a direct relationship agreement with Trump Nui to determine how hapu and Trump Nui will work together on all taiao matters in our takiwa. And we have also requested that representation taiao to be extended to include one hapu nominated representative from each rohinga to within their rohinga. Thank you, and us in Rohinga Tipuna 5 are committed to working with the committee taiao to ensure.
Tēnā tātou Ngati Porou, ko Penny Campbell Paku tēnei, Penny Junior. I'm standing for talking about Power Wars coming up on the 3rd. Whānau, I would really like to see everybody that comes home with them when they finish. And whatever they bring in, if they see the piles of rubbish and recyclable we leave there on the 3rd, for us to be a big wānanga on the 4th. Whānau, looking forward to Power Wars, but very much looking forward to everyone taking responsibility for their waste.
Tēnā tātou, ko Lillian Te Hau Wōrā Hau, no konei noho ana. So to the board,
First, so I stand for many people that couldn't make it here today. We had the trust deed that I've been asked is being a tunga of deputy chair when she had not served a full term prior to the last elections. So that's question one.
Okay, so full discussion went amongst the board advice. So that's how it happened.
Are you able to make that legal advice available to the whānau or your beneficiaries?
Well, what's the question? What was that, sorry?
Are you able to make that legal advice available to us, beneficiaries?
Well, the board, we've only got one board member. I'm obviously not telling lies.
Whānau have actually asked for the evidence, which is why I'm standing.
Yeah, we didn't, I don't think we got written advice. The lawyer was present at the time of discussion. Did we get written? Yeah. Okay, we did get written as well.
Could we please see the iwi lawyers? I hear tautoko. Do whānau tautoko? Ngā mihi kia koutou. The second partai that I've been asked to raise is the investment into Te Ara Tipuna by our board, both previous and current. Even our whānau are struggling. Our whānau are struggling, and we are struggling with the decisions and the investments that the board is currently making. Along with that, we believe that there are conflicts of interest. Both Te Ara Tipuna board members and current and previous board members. So we would like independent and an investigation into the conduct as beneficiaries. Do I have any of hands within this room and outside? Do we have support to get independent advice in terms of the conflicts?
Kia ora tātou. I'm the kōkahi here that Lillian is referring to. The questions are about how I of the board voted for me to be deputy chair. I'm not aware that my performance has been anyway, and those of you who don't know me but saw the presentation that I just gave, you have seen some 3 years. We invite you to go to the Te Ara Tipuna website. It's tearatipuna.nz. At most pa around Ngati Porou that Lillian hosted at the Tokomaru Bay Football Club. We've been to every township in the because landowners are the people that in the end will decide whether from Te Toka Ataio ki Karakia in Opotiki will go ahead or not. It is intended to be an economic artery for all those whenua Māori blocks that at the moment are either not accessible, don't have a governance authority, they can't get capital from a bank in order to develop anything. This project is a multi-layered project, and any of the conflicts of interest which are being alleged by Lillian and asking a group of hui here proposed, every report on Te Ara Tipuna, every one of them, on coastal erosion, on archaeology, on kilometres of the 500, Ngati Porou. So we are 75% of this proposal. Traversed 316 Ngati Porou. Many of them have no governance entity. And Gisborne have been so under-resourced that succession orders have been there for years. And unless we can break through that logjam, those whenua Māori blocks that to in some way or another will continue to be abandoned. And what this project is doing is working with the backlog, get resourcing into the court, and we are proposing that the Gisborne Registry be up. Tupuna can only go ahead if governed authorities of the specific blocks agree to it. There is no compulsion. Nobody's being required to join this kaupapa. But I'm telling you now, it is one of the initiatives since Te Runanganui did the land development scheme in 1929. Whenua. And you have struck these obstacles. Te Ara Tipuna is working to try. It's not a major organisation. WIC. And by the way, anyone who is part of Ngati Porou Proud, never mind posting ugly things anonymously, turn name to them. This
Kei kona ia hau and iti. Hekia. Ko tēnei tōku marae. You will not speak down to me. Ko au he ahi kā. You will not speak down to me. That's what you do to our rohinga members. Okay, Te Pai, let's go back to my questions that align to the Charter. Charter
are an attack on integrity. They are. You're saying, how did I become deputy chair?
I'm asking you've taken
we're
it
not
personally.
going to have an argument. I'll just close the meeting and we'll have lunch.
Kei Te Pai, we'll
Because
just go to the serious
progressive.
Ford office for the answers.
And the
Ngā mihi.
So that's why I'm standing up in front of all of you to say, I'm happy to answer any question you ask to my face, as opposed to anonymous 7-page posts that go out around the internet. Mark Twain wrote, Hapu. I've answered them. Oh, okay.
There's no order here. Okay, Maraika, your question, and then I'm going to ask Sir Selwyn to close us in prayer.
It's going to be another attack, so I don't know why you're allowing
Yeah.
her.
Oh, I thought because he's here by Tukiaya.
Ata, kia ora ata. Yeah. So kia ora whānau, I'm Mareika Warmanhoven. I've done 2 terms on the Runanga Board. I was one of the inaugural members. This is very relevant to me. Why are we turning me down? Kia ora. Elected to the board, I myself tried to nominate an unconstitutional person as deputy chair and was now. I asked, so what you have that you're presenting the constitution as an unconstitutional chair. No, no, no. You were there at both times. Point of a constitution, if in one moment a special person comes in, no, Ngā was bullied. Ngā was bullied. Your own rep.
Karanga kato oai defana. Yes, I already have. Put your tono down.
O e nore te iwi kua tai ki te mutunga te hui a tau mo te runanganui a Ngati Porou mo te tau 2024 koene ngā kōno te wā mo tātou ngā uri o Porou ko te reo iriranga o Ngati Porou tēnei e whakapaho.
E mana e hāpai. Nō reira nei rā hau e tono atu a kia tū te hui a tā.
Kia ora, ka pai.
Ngā tapu o heo e araroa. No name. Te whanaua te whakai. Mana whenua o te ahuri ngā rongo nui ngā overarch the negatives. You that, if you're still feeling strongly about it, I invite you in person and talk to the board. Kei te pai tēnā, mā whiri whiri, hara mai a tinana. Also,
live stream so that the iwi around the water, given that most of us live away. Being on the council, that's one of the things that all of our meetings are live streamed so that whānau can participate and listen in. Of course you'll have your things that are confidential, you can't, but I'd like to...
There's a, also there's a card here, JP. Okay. No reira kei noi tātou, e iho ato mātou kaihanga matua nui te rangi. Kia koe o wāu manaki tanga ki runga ki a mātou matanga o tēnei hui, a tainua mai ki tēnei wā. Ki nau nei mātou I arahi mai ki konei tēnei rā. Ka inu atu nei ki a koe ke tau iho tō mai Ngati Porou, e inu atu nei ki a koe I runga I te ngākau maha ki tēnei wā. Me te inu e anō hoki kia mau kia tau, kia ua anō hoki au manaki tanga ki runga ki tēnā o mātou. E I hoa whakapaingia o mātou kai hei. Wairua ki te taro o te ora. Ko ihu kraiti hoki tō mātou kai whakaora, kroria ki a koe, āmine.